So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Pavilhão do Conhecimento. It's a pleasure to have you all here. We'll start kind of the session now. We have a very tight schedule, but I'm sure we'll have also time to discuss and then debate and how to strengthen the already strong collaborations between the UK and Portugal. So it's a pleasure to have you all here, and it's my pleasure also to welcome on stage Rosalia Vargas, President of Ciência Viva, Sainty, Ambassador of the United Kingdom to Portugal, and Madalena Alves, President of FCT. I'll ask the three of you to join me here on the stage, please. And so it's just trying to speed up things, let's say. It's nothing against you being sitting there, but sim, pode falar, já será primeiro. Yes, please. The second. It's your house. and without further ado, I will hand over to Rosalia Vargas for her kind of welcome words. Thank you very much.
Good morning. It's a great pleasure to see you all here in this auditorium in a science center. In what a better place we can imagine to be this morning. The science centers are really a very good places to receive such an event like this one. I would like to address my first words to the Minister of Science and Technology and Higher Education, Elvira. It's a pleasure to see you here always. And Madalena, President of FCT, Mr. Ambassador, Sainty. We will arrange a visit with more time to visit our exhibitions. And I would like to say a special warmly good morning to the President of the Rectors, Presidente do grupo, Viva, Reitor da Universidade de Aveiro, e Diogo, que gosto de tê-lo aqui, o Presidente do PARSUK, e cumprimento todos os presentes, investigadores, colegas. É um grande gosto recebê-los aqui neste evento. I prepared a very short PowerPoint. I hope to take you not less more 5 minutes, but is our homage to you all and to this strong cooperation with UK for many years. And in the field of science centers and museums, we have a big and great experience together with science centers, especially, but also in collaboration with PARSUK. But as you see in some images that I will show to you, the most important thing for Ciência Viva is to work together with the scientific community. We have been growing up over the last almost 3 decades with the scientists, women and men. And as we are in a auditorium José Mariano Gago, is very important to recall his words about the importance of science culture and the work that the scientists should have with the society. And always he used to say, fight ignorance, scientific ignorance, work with teachers, with schools, open the labs, create science centers. We have a network of 21 science centers throughout the country, and it's important bring people to science and science to people. And a very important and sometimes difficult thing, but we need to do it, and we have been doing this with a great pleasure, is to work with policymakers. This picture was taken in the opening of the Science Center in 1999. So to see a minister so happy, as Elvira used to do when she goes to when she has the chance to have time to go to the exhibitions area, and to play with the exhibits is a great joy. We like to see politicians doing this. But always he used to tell us, work with researchers. And this is a very key point in our activity. I didn't resist to show to you this short video. I hope you receive it with joy.
Hello, Britain. So you're leaving? C'est la vie. But before you go,
if there's anything you need,
all you have to do is say, you know you
satisfy everything in me. You shouldn't waste a single day.
So don't stop me falling, it's destiny calling.
A power I just can't deny. It's never changing, can you hear me? I'm saying I want you for the rest of my life. Together forever and never to part. Together forever we two. And don't you know I would move heaven and earth
To be together forever with you.
Well, you are in our heart all the time. And as this event shows, and PARSUK, the work you are doing at UK, we have a great collaboration, always. I take this opportunity to invite you to our next Christmas lecture. Imagine, since 2012, it's so recent. Our next one will be in 19th December. It's always in a theater. It's a scientific conference addressed to the public at large. We offer to the society. And we start a few time ago. Ana Hilario, I don't know if she's, oh, Anna, we'll meet you in that conference very soon. But look, is always in the theater, but we were inspired in a Royal Institution, the Christmas lecture, since 1825. So almost 200 years doing this. It's a wonderful initiative, and we was inspired on UK activity. We are just starting, but we don't want to stop. So in the next, I don't know, 200 years, we'll be here as a particles in the universe to a Christmas conference. I would like to only to show to you very briefly the results of Ciência Viva, and not Ciência Viva, Portugal achieved among European countries, as Eurobarometer showed. the inquiry in 2005, it was terrible for Portugal, as the previous also, but suddenly it takes 2 decades working very hard. In 2021, the results coming, finally. And we are, Portugal, in the first place of the indicators among the Europeans about the interest in science and technology. And also the Portuguese are in the first place about the relevance of science in society. And we are in the second place in all Europe that are visiting more science centers and museums. It takes time. It is relevant for Portugal because we have been working with the scientific community mostly. This is my last one, but as we are among scientists mainly, I would like to show you this 1-minute video. Less, 30 seconds video. Imagine one Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we are in the main room, exhibition room. It's Friday, as I said, and we have a science school for kids, for primary school students inside a pavilion. It's a museum school. And among many things that the little students have been doing during the entire week, in this case, they were in the middle of a wonderful exhibition, a blockbuster exhibition, The Angry Birds. A journalist stopped one kid and asked him,
o que é que gostaste mais?
De encontrar um cientista.
Congratulations to you. Thank you.
Senhora Ministra, Professora Elvira Fortunato, Minister of Science, Technology and Higher Education, thank you for being with us today. We're very honoured to have you. Rosalia, thank you for those lovely supportive words. Professora Madalena, Diogo, dear Diogo, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's really wonderful to be here today for this important occasion. And indeed, it has been a bit of a journey to get here, and I would like to start by thanking our 2 excellent partners, PARSUK, represented by Diogo today here, and FCT, represented by Madalena, Alves, for their tireless collaboration. And of course, I would also like to thank Ciência Viva, represented by Rosalia, for hosting us in this really absolutely wonderful venue, and for helping us to promote today's event. So we're here, as I think you all know, to discuss the Stadio, the Relatorio, pump mapping scientific collaborations between Portugal and the UK, produced by PARSUK and co-funded by the Embassy, the British Embassy, and which I know that Diogo is going to present to us shortly. And that, I hope, will lead us to a discussion of how we can deepen the UK-Portugal relationship in science and innovation even further in the future. Now, you'll have to forgive me because I always love to say a little bit about the history of the Anglo-Portuguese relationship. This year, as some of you will be aware, we have been celebrating 650 years of what we call the Ancient Alliance, the Aliança Antiga, between our 2 countries, which I'm happy to say is still going strong today in the 21st century. It's an alliance that was born out of security, but which over the centuries has broadened and deepened to include trading and cultural links, strong personal and family ties between our people, and in more recent times, Science and research have become a very important cornerstone of the UK-Portugal relationship, and that is reflected in the agreement, the joint declaration that was signed last year by our two prime ministers, which seeks to facilitate engagement between Portuguese and British research institutions and the wider science and innovation community to tackle shared global challenges. Now, I think those words are important and necessary because, to be honest, this has not been the easiest task in recent years. Following the UK's departure from the European Union, the lengthy delay to our association to European research programs created an environment of financial uncertainty, which had a damaging impact on collaborations between British and European researchers. And as some of you will know, this is something that I personally have campaigned pretty relentlessly on over the last 3 years. Finally, in September, we received the excellent and long-awaited news of an agreement for the UK to reassociate, if you like, with Horizon Europe and Copernicus, the two EU programs, important EU research programs, and that agreement was formalized last week and will come into force on the 1st of January. I cannot overstate the significance and importance of this agreement for everybody with an interest in European science. It provides our scientists with a stable basis for international collaboration. It offers certainty to our partners in Europe and beyond, who will now be safe in the knowledge that the UK's association is secure. And the prospects are immense. Under the previous Horizon programme, the UK established over 200,000 collaborative links with international partners in 163 countries. The agreement also demonstrates the strength of our mature relationship with the European Union and our commitment to maximising the potential of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, which the agreement that was signed after we left the European Union between Brussels and the UK. Now, I know that the political storyline has not always given the impression that the UK and the EU are prepared to work together in a constructive way, but agreements such as this one tell a different and a much more positive story. And we in the UK are determined to make our association a long-term success for global science, and the UK research and development sector stands ready to strengthen and renew links and partnerships through Horizon, through Copernicus, with our international partners. And my team at the British Embassy here in Lisbon is absolutely committed to facilitating new collaborations between Portuguese and British institutions and researchers, many of whom are in this room today. And so in that spirit, and fulfilling one of the recommendations of the POMP study, which stresses the importance of personal relationships, we are announcing today a partnership with Liga Portuguesa contra o Cancro to establish a new UK-Portugal award of €8,000 to fund a short exploratory visit to the UK by 1 or 2 Portuguese researchers in the field of cancer research to attend a specific scientific event and to interact, spend time with UK-based researchers or institutions. And we will be sending out more information about this award to all of you after today's event. Later this morning, we will also welcome on this stage the CEOs of British company Open Cosmos and Portuguese Connected, who will establish a commercial partnership for joint satellite missions. This and the wider announcement last month that the UK is aiming to join Portugal and Spain in the Atlantic constellation, with a Pathfinder contribution being built by Open Cosmos, is, I think, a clear demonstration of the wealth and the extent of opportunities ahead for bilateral collaboration, not just in space, but on science and innovation more generally. And finally, before the end of today's session, our partners, the FCT and PARSUK, are going to renew their protocol of collaboration aimed at promoting science diplomacy between the UK and Portugal and fostering networks among the scientific communities in both countries. And this is great news, and my team will always remain available for promoting and increasing collaboration between our organisations. Ladies and gentlemen, my own time in Portugal is sadly coming to an end after 5 wonderful years. Serving as the British ambassador here has been one of the great privileges of my life, and I hope that you will indulge me by allowing me just to finish with a couple of words in Portuguese, words of one of the great poets of this beautiful country that has been home to me and my family for the last 5 years. Fernando Pessoa escreveu no seu livro de Desassossego que não há felicidade senão como conhecimento. E uma vez que estamos precisamente no pavilhão do conhecimento, espero que os nossos cientistas portugueses e britânicos, todos vós, possam trabalhar em conjunto para criar conhecimento, para encontrar soluções para os grandes desafios com que nos deparamos, para construir sociedades mais justas, mais prósperas e até mais felizes. Muito obrigado. Thank you.
Well, good morning, distinguished participants, dear Minister, Elvira Fortunato, dear Ambassador, Chris Sainty, the President of the Council of Rectors, João Paulo Ferreira, our host, Rosalia, and Diogo Martins, President of PARSUK. Good morning to all. I would like to congratulate PARSUK for the preparation of this study that will be presented today, PUMP, Portugal United Kingdom Mapping Project. This innovative project reaffirms what we had already intuitively knew, that the scientific communities of both countries have a deep-rooted collaboration, originating not only from historical ties, but also from the scientific excellence in research. It was with the aim of achieving results like this one that FCT signed a protocol with PARSUK in 2019, further enhancing the productive collaboration between FCT and PARSUK that reinforces the thematic of this event today, a UK-Portugal dialogue addressing global challenges through collaboration. Also today, it is my pleasure to sign the renovation of this protocol, seeking to enable more sustainable collaboration for a multi-year work plan. We make a very positive assessment of this collaboration, institutional collaboration, that has strengthened scientific diplomacy in the bilateral relations between Portugal and the UK, particularly in the fields of research, innovation, development, and scientific culture. FCT has an extensive experience in international cooperation in science and technology with partners and funding agencies worldwide. Additionally, its funding instruments are open to foreign citizens, promoting not only brain gain, but also to opening of the scientific system to international partners. At European level, much of the cooperation between Portugal and the UK has been facilitated in recent decades by opportunities for centralized funding in the European Commission's framework programs for research and innovation. This trend is demonstrated by the mapping conducted by PARSUK, along with other actions directly or indirectly established, including advanced training, supported, for example, by joint doctoral scholarships and joint participation in international networks and organizations. FCT is responsible for promoting 2 pillars of Horizon Europe in Portugal, Pillar 1, Excellence, and Pillar 4, aimed at expanding participation opportunities for countries like Portugal. Horizon Europe funds can provide an opportunity for Portuguese researchers abroad who are considering returning to Portugal. Similarly, for Portuguese researchers in the UK without plans to return, Horizon Europe funds can offer opportunities for collaboration between Portugal and the United Kingdom through joint applications with institutions from both countries. It is worth noting that Portugal holds the status of a widening country, granting access to specific funding lines that support the creation of scientific collaboration networks between Portuguese institutions and leading institutions in the UK. In this context, to promote Horizon Europe and attract competitive researchers to Portugal, FCT has several ongoing initiatives. Some examples: we launched the ERC Portugal program for researchers who are finalists in the ERC Starting, Consolidator, and Advanced Grant competitions. This program aims to reward researchers working in national scientific institutions who significantly contribute to the internationalization of Portuguese science by securing funding from European programs. Through this support, FCT acknowledged the scientific merit of ERC applications that were unfunded due to budget limitations, enabling researchers to further develop their proposed research projects and improve their chances of successful future ERC applications. The ultimate goal, of course, is for Portuguese researchers and institutions to succeed in the European Research Council goals. To that end, FCT also has an ongoing program called ERC Portugal Pre-Assessment, and in this particular program, applicants affiliated with the institutions in Portugal can submit a pre-application proposal, which will be evaluated by experts with profiles matching those of ERC experts in the relevant panel. This process helps applicants to refine their proposals for submission and enhances their chances of success. The ERC Portugal program is growing. We have plans to develop more sub-projects in this program. Another relevant instrument that FCT will soon launch is a mobility program dedicated to international cooperation to support the promotion of networks of collaboration between researchers, allowing incoming and outgoing mobility scheme, bringing foreign researchers to Portugal and supporting Portuguese scientists to spend some time abroad in international research institutions. In a rapidly changing world and recognizing the global nature of science, it is essential to find alternative forms of collaboration when circumstances demand. This reflection, promoted by 2 countries that recognize the significance of investing in science and share common values and ideals, will undoubtedly converge. FCT is pleased to be a part of this reflection and will continue to engage in dialogue with our British partners, including our counterpart in the United Kingdom, UK Research and Innovation. We will utilize established institutional and diplomatic channels to identify the most suitable forms of collaboration based on political and strategic guidelines, as well as the evidence demonstrated in studies such as the one presented here today, to sustain and strengthen our existing cooperation. So thank you so much, and I wish a very good journey today. Thank you.
So back again. As we all noticed, we are running a bit delayed. So I will present or introduce Diogo Martins, President of PARSUK, that will now present us with the report that PARSUK has produced. I think you will enjoy, and clearly I think I can say that we are all institutionally aligned to enhance the already strong UK-Portugal bilateral relationship. So, Diogo, without further ado, please.
Okay, let's try this. Is it working? Can you hear me okay? Bom dia. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to try to use the stage a bit because I know there's colleagues all across the auditorium. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. I know this is a very tricky time of the year where everybody's trying to squeeze all sorts of events, and to be here in the middle of the week. I came from London just to be with you, but just wanted to thank you for joining us, the audience, and of course, Your Excellency, the Minister, Elvira Fortunato, very nice to meet you in person, and thank you for joining us today. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Portugal, of the UK in Lisbon. Also, Your Excellency, the Professora Madalena Alves of FCT, and of course, our brilliant host, Rosalia. Thank you very much for hosting us and for the friendship, and for always having an open door for PARSUK UK. So what am I here to do? Hopefully this will work. I'm going a little bit too fast. By the way, my name is Diogo. You probably heard in the presentations about me, but just very briefly, I am a medical doctor from here, and I've been in the UK for a few years. I was a researcher in the space of climate change and health, but I now work for an organization that also supports research from other people, including Portuguese researchers, the Wellcome Trust. But I'm here as the president of PARSUK UK, which is a mouthful of an organization to really say it's an organization that brings together academics, scientists, graduates from Portugal who are based in the UK, and we bring them together and to develop their careers and to sort of represent their interests. And we've been doing so for the past 15 years. If you have not heard about PARSUK UK, if you want to hear more, we're always an open house to anyone who's interested in international collaboration. So the event here today is very special for us because it's basically a final milestone in bringing together and disseminating the results of this PUMP report, which has been actually launched in October in London. But the idea of bringing this event to Lisbon is because it is about mapping international collaboration, and the conversation would not be over only by disseminating results to our UK audiences. We wanted to bring the conversation here. But I think it's been quite well covered in the opening speeches that the idea is also to look at the past, understand where we are right now, and thinking about the future. So there are clearly opportunities in the future, especially with the great news of the UK association with the Horizon Europe. And I think this report might be a good starting point to look at collaborations that have started in the past decade and understanding what are the possibilities and opportunities going forward. So it's really nice to be here, but really to foster that dialogue. I will try not to be very heavy on my presentation. Of course, I need to have some sort of a structure. This is not a scientific talk, but with this particular structure, just want to let you know that it's been a long process of bringing together a report. It involved consultations, it involved a methodology, it involved really thoughtful leadership from everybody involved, including FCT, the British Embassy, and many other partners who've been part of this project. To our knowledge, this is the first and most comprehensive assessment of the UK-Portugal collaborations in science and innovation over the past decade. This is not to say that it is the perfect report. It is the perfect and ultimate mapping. We're hoping that this is the starting point only for future mappings, other ways of approaching this, going to different geographies, but also taking this very much as a starting point. But I want to with my particular presentation, and I will cover the what and the how we got there, but it would be incomplete to do so without talking about the why. And the ambassador has mentioned that our friendship has lasted for at least 650 years, and it's been covering multiple different areas, but science and innovation is clearly one of them, and it's been very much reflected on a joint declaration signed by our prime ministers. But just a little bit of a travel back to the memory lane in terms of how we had the license to operate and the resource to do so. In 2019, actually back at Wellcome where I work, we signed the first protocol with FCT, where we're just starting this international collaboration. On the back of that agreement, we've established bilateral scholarship funds. We've established the ability of creating a scientific advisory board internationally of Portuguese scientists in the UK who would serve as an observatory of the trends in science and innovation, and with that being a mechanism to indicate to the Portuguese institutions, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the embassy, on the specific trends and the opportunities for Portugal. So we signed that protocol in 2019, and in 2021, on the height of the pandemic, I was very fortunate to come back to Lisbon and really reinforce that agreement with Portugal with a collaboration then more formalized with the UK. And this is where we signed an MOU with the British Embassy and the UK's Science and Innovation Network that really brought together more resources to these activities, to the scholarship funds, but especially to this mapping exercise. So we spent a really good time thinking about how to approach this. And for all of us academics, I'm not a scientist myself, but researchers, we kind of know that approaching these exercises can be quite daunting. And we spent some really good time in scoping and understanding what would it be the scope of the exercise. We could try to map everything that exists. That would not be possible. But we tried to be a little bit strategic in terms of what exactly we would be prioritizing. So we spent a really good time thinking about the aim of thinking about, for example, a thematic scope, a temporal scope. And that's what we tried to do, looking specifically over the last decade, what were specifically the collaborations between Portugal and the UK, in particular strategic areas of interest. And these were the EU missions around climate, oceans, soil, cancer, and smart cities. There's obviously a conceptual framework. This is just a taster, so if you have more questions or would like to deep dive into the methodology, we can do so maybe over the coffee break or over email or over any more specific conversation. But just to assure you, we spent some really good time thinking about what the scope was and what our approach was. And very much interested on the impact. So we did not want to sort of just create a report that would be a beautiful, shiny report to put on the shelves, but to really bring something that would be useful, not only for PARSUK, for our communities, but to hopefully bring something that would be insightful for those who are making decisions about where the money goes, which research groups have collaborated and potentially have an interesting potential to evolve in their research, both in Portugal and the UK. So the idea would be to have this as a starting point for future investment opportunities between Portugal and the UK. And of course, we were doing so in the context of Brexit. We did not have the great news of the association with the program Horizon Europe and Copernicus. Now, even more so, this report becomes such a great starting point because that door is open. I will not spend too much time on this, but just to say in terms of our approach, we try to have sort of a dual approach. We try to map the visible, what we call the visible collaborations. We try to focus specifically on collaborations that we could identify using publicly available information, the databases from FCT in Portugal, the databases from UKRI, the databases from the European Union with Cordis. And we tried to really pinpoint exactly what those collaborations were across the 5 different themes: climate change, cancer, oceans, smart cities, and soil, and food. We did so because, again, we need to have some sort of methodology, something that would be reproducible, and this alone was very hard already to do. So we tried to understand what those collaborations were, in which institutions, which researchers, and also what exactly have they produced. We could try to map everything, but try to look at publications, for example, how many, where, and patent applications as an example, sort of a way of understanding how productive they were and how potential impact in terms of value for society they could translate to become. The second approach is what we call the invisible ones. And I think here we had partners trying to tease us out a little bit more. It's not only about numbers. We want to know a little bit more about exactly how these collaborations were started. What were the conditions? What made them successful? What made them struggle? And we tried to do so a little bit more as well with our second approach, which was a lot more qualitative. We sent surveys, we sent a few interviews, and we tried to understand and go a little bit deeper into those collaborations. And we went a little bit over the scope of the 5 themes. And we're going to have a little bit of a case study later in which we might not need to cover all the aspects of the report. It's all in the report, but you'll have the opportunity to hear directly from the researchers about exactly how that collaboration started. Before we move on to the results, just making eye contact with Federico, if he tells me that I'm delaying too much. But just want to give you not the full account of the results, but the ones that to us were quite striking. So if you look at the A stands for the visible part, and then the B will be the invisible part. So in terms of the results, in terms of this methodology, what were the collaborations? We identified almost 1,500 projects within the scope of geography, Portugal and the UK, and the time frame of the last decade. But we were there you go. We went more into detail into these 444 projects, which were not only within time frame and location, but also in thematic scope. Remember those 5 areas. And we found an interesting set of facts around how much this sample of 444 projects really meant in terms of funding, 2.5 billion euros. Each project with a median of almost 5 million euros. And we would not be surprised because we're looking at particular thematic scope, climate change, as one of the most prominent areas of research that involves Portugal and the UK bilaterally or multilaterally. Just a breakdown of what that looks like in terms of the different themes, climate change being at the top, cancer in the bottom. Again, we've also reflected around the limitations of the report. There's a section in the end. I was expecting, as a medical doctor myself, to see a lot more on cancer in this mapping, but it's also just one part of all the health research that happens between Portugal and the UK. But the fact is, almost €1 billion was invested in the last decade in climate change adaptation. A few more results in terms of the most collaborative institutions. Again, we're looking at the 444 projects. The most collaborative institutions in Portugal, Técnico Estado de Porto, CIMAR, which makes a little bit of sense if you're looking at themes like oceans, biodiversity, climate change. And the UK, the University of Exeter, Imperial College London, and the Scottish Association for Marine Science. You can deep dive into, there's also a database in which you can go into the details of what that looks like. In terms of how dynamic these collaborations were, if you look at, for example, publications, there's a long list of 15,000 publications that all these projects produced. And it was interesting that some of them we could directly attribute to the 444 projects, but other publications we identified, almost 5,000, were from new projects or informal collaborations that were not associated with particular funding. 40 patent applications, which is an interesting element as well, when we were very much keen to involve our colleagues from ISEP. They deal a lot with trade, business, so they really want to understand the interface between science and business. And as we all know, patent applications do have this potential to produce value to society, looking at different types of interventions and bringing innovation. In terms of PhD and postdocs, which also try to look at specifically at how many PhDs and postdocs have been funded within these thematic areas, but also the directionality of how many of the British came to Portugal and how many Portuguese went to the UK. As you probably can see, very obviously, there's a lot of Portuguese going to the UK, a little bit less so of British coming to Portugal, but still, within scope, 25 PhDs and postdocs supported, and is, coming up to over 1.5 million euros in terms of total funding of these 25 projects, a median for scholarship of just about 60K per project. Here, a little bit more aligned with what I expected. There's a lot of colleagues doing research in healthcare and cancer in the UK, and some of the top institutions that host these students, not only in the UK, but also in Portugal. Moving on, I will not spend too much time here. I also have 5 minutes. I want to make sure we move on. But there's a second part that is not, it's very important. I'm not trying to reduce and dismiss how important it is to understand the blockers and the enablers and how these collaborations started. But we dived quite deep into understanding how these collaborations started, the initiation, the resilience around COVID and ability to interact and collaborate online, but also offline via conferences. What motivated these collaborations. But I'll not cover it too much now because we have a case study to really give a little bit of color into that. Enablers and blockers, which I think some of them are quite common sense. We do know that mobility programs are quite important, and I think there's open questions about Portugal and the UK, or the UK and Europe in terms of that mobility in undergrad programs. Institutional agreements, we all think that those MOUs between universities, they hold no value, but they really make a difference. And the blockers, lack of funding and bureaucracy, which we are all quite familiar with. Impact. The key point here is 92% of the people who responded to our surveys and we interviewed reported a very positive impact of international collaboration, which is, again, sounds like common sense, but there's more color in the report as well about that. I will not cover all of this because I know I have less than 5 minutes. This is just a summary of what we found in the mapping, so the visible part and the invisible part, just to probably highlight the ones that were more, to me, quite striking. So the fact that I had no idea, 2.5 billion euros of collaboration between Portugal, that's a big number. Almost 1,500 projects, and we only were able to analyze over 400. That's a lot of collaborations, a lot of researchers, a lot of publications. But also, I found quite interesting that on the qualitative side, that the early career researchers do have an important role in starting these collaborations. And we tend to think about the more senior researchers, the more senior scientists, as obviously important gatekeepers and decision makers when it comes to international collaborations, but we also know that the junior colleagues are really important in establishing those links. And I think, as myself, when I was more of an early career researcher, it was something that I do not have a reference to give to, but I think this report really sheds light on that as well. Recommendations. So on the back of all these insights, we made a few recommendations in terms of trying to, there's 5 of them. I just go one by one, but not into a lot of detail. But it's almost like a call to action. And again, this is a starting point for future investment opportunities. Thinking about opportunities for the UK and Portugal to really develop those joint research projects in areas of joint interest. I just came back from COP in UAE, and we were talking about climate. It was beautiful to see the Portuguese pavilion there for the first time. When I was there the first time about 5 years ago, it was a very different landscape, and it is very clear that within the space of climate, oceans, Portugal and the UK do have a unique value there, a unique position to probably expand those areas a little bit further. Thinking about number 2, for example, official collaboration agreements. Again, it sounds more of a tick box exercise, but it is not. It gives the license to operate and the license to deepen collaborations between institutions. So we're very much fans of these collaboration agreements between institutions that are already collaborating internationally. So being very strategic about those. Thinking about innovation and tech transfer. So think about how innovation is a global enterprise and how the benefits can be shared across both countries. Thinking about supporting international collaboration across all career stages. So thinking about research and scientist careers and how we give them the space to really thinking about international collaboration, international mobility, ability to go to conferences, ability to network. So, but thinking about this as early as possible. And last but not least, as with any scientific report, we need more research. We need to monitor and evaluate. We need to think about how this evolves over time. So it's very much a part of our call to action. I hope it's not too bad in terms of timing. Just want to thank everybody who was involved. We had an amazing team of research analysts that we were able to, with the support of FCT and the British Embassy, to hire, but also colleagues across a variety of different stakeholder groups. And again, this was a huge piece of work. Just before we close, and passing it on to the case study where we can go a little bit more into the details of one specific collaboration, just wanted to thank all the partners and for for trusting PARSUK UK in doing this imperfect piece of work, but one that I hope inspires future teams in PARSUK UK, other countries to do the same. We can, repeat exercises, and we're not keen to repeat exercises just for the sake of doing it, but we can expand to other areas of work that were not covered in this report, other thematic areas. We can try to think about, for example, within the ones we identified, to trickle down a little bit into the translation potential and the social and economic value that it brought to society, both in Portugal, in the UK, and abroad. But just want to say it was an immense pleasure to bring this together. And I think it is not a small feat to really recognize that, for example, projects like these have been able to give us an opportunity to get additional grants. And we just yesterday launched an amazing grant funded by the European Commission of 600,000 euros for the next couple of years, in which we are going to be doing this at scale with more European countries in the UK. Which is, quite incredible, and I think that's for all of us who've done research or have been academics. I think this is what brings us back to sitting down and understanding the value of science and what we do to society. So thank you very much. This is all we have time for. And now I have the pleasure to move on to the next segment of the agenda. Which is the case study. So I'll call to the stage Professor Kerry Howell and Dr. Anilari for a little bit of a conversation about one collaboration example, a case study. After you. Thank you. And sit here. Wonderful. I do think we need the microphone. And this segment will not take very long. I'm not sure. Can you still hear me okay? Wonderful. So this segment is, again, to avoid Diogo speaking for hours about how this collaboration started if I was not actually part of one of those specific examples, but really to give the stage to researchers who were part of that journey. So we only have a few minutes when we have a few questions. And I think starting with the basics, trying to avoid myself repeating people's CVs, just give the stage to our speakers now in thinking about, just presenting yourself to the audience, where you come from, and what are your areas of research. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. My name's Kerry Howell. I'm from Plymouth University in the UK, and I am a deep sea biologist. So I work on studying the animals and the ecosystem that is the deep sea.
I'm glad that Kerry explained what a deep sea biologist is, because I'm also a deep sea biologist, but in the University of Aveiro in Portugal. I don't know, Diogo, if you want us to carry out.
No, I think let's focus a little bit, because unfortunately we have a very packed agenda. It's very clear that we're in great company, but we want to hear more about a collaboration between your two institutions. So can you tell us a little bit more, take us back on a journey in terms of when this collaboration started? Where were you when that collaboration started? When was that? And can you tell us a little bit more exactly on how that came about?
It's actually very easy, because you set up the stage for us, because we fit a lot of those points. So I was awarded a PhD grant from FCT in 2001, and I moved to the UK, to the National Oceanography Centre in Southampton, where I met Kerry, that was doing a PhD at the time. We didn't collaborate much then, we were just colleagues. how do you call us, scientific siblings, because we had we had the same supervisor, and we both moved our ways, and as early career researchers we again found us again and started collaborating, and I leave it to Kerry to develop.
Yeah. Yeah, so as Anna explained, we've known each other since our PhDs, but it wasn't really until our more mid-senior career where we got back in touch again to collaborate on a research project, and it's the project we're working on now, actually. So we both had an idea back in 2015, I think it was a long time ago, that we would like to explore the ocean to help understand the ocean to support sustainable management and sustainable development of the deep sea. And it was really based on an anniversary of a very old expedition, the Challenger expedition, which was one of the first expeditions to go around the world. But of course, Portugal and the UK have an extremely long history of ocean exploration. And so we both had this shared passion for exploration and discovery of the deep ocean, and wanted to come together we basically came together because we had the same idea independently that we would then build a new project to work together over the next 10 years to try to further our understanding of the deep ocean. And that's the Challenger program, which is part of it's a UN Ocean Decade program, an endorsed program.
It's wonderful. And can you tell us, it's very clear that, again, the report actually, I'm glad that we did not contradict reality and sort of say that this collaboration started early. But can you tell us a little bit more about sort of the benefits of sort of collaborating? Of course, you were doing the PhD together, or sort of met at that point. But now that you're in different countries, can you tell us a little bit more about those benefits of, in Plymouth now collaborating with the University of Aveiro and vice versa?
I think the benefit of any collaboration, and particularly our collaboration, is that we bring different skills to the table, and we also bring different networks to the table. So although we're both deep sea scientists, our particular areas of research are slightly different, but very related, and it means that we can bring different things into any project. And I think we also work with different nations, and particularly in the context of Challenger, there are lots of Portuguese-speaking nations, and there are also lots of English-speaking nations. And in fact, it allows us to bring those networks together into the same project, and that's a real strength, I think. I don't know, Anna, if you want to add in.
Yeah, I think that's the real strength, and the report actually uses a word that I don't like at all, which is superpowers, but in fact the UK and Portugal have been and can still be superpowers in ocean research, and I think bringing the UK and Portugal together in ocean science can be really valuable mainly for the Atlantic constellation, but also globally because of our history of ocean exploration and science. Yeah.
I mean, I understand, and I think superpowers there's a political charge to it, but I do believe scientists have superpowers to do what they do, so I think we're all in agreement. Just to close off, I think just looking at Federico and Hugo, we have some time. Maybe my last question, almost finishing. Last question, 5 minutes, 10, okay, so 5 minutes, good. I'll ask my last question, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to give the audience the space to ask one question. Maybe that'll be lovely. But my last question, it would be more to look at the future, right? You're collaborating now. You're hoping to have this collaboration for the upcoming few years. What would you like to see in your area of research in the next 10 years in your collaboration? And what were you hoping to contribute with your work to the body and the research agenda in oceans research going forward?
Okay, so as Kerry already said, the Challenger 150 program is a UN Ocean Decade program. So we will continue working on it until 2030, at least. We are a global program, so I think our main contribution is really that it's a global program. We're bringing together people from everywhere including landlocked countries, to discuss deep sea problems, because as most of you probably know, a large area of the deep ocean is beyond national jurisdictions. So this is a very important point that we try to focus, and we're trying to give access to this huge amount of our planet to countries that don't have the same facilities that the UK and Portugal have, and I think that's our main goal with Challenger. What we're really lacking, and unfortunately we are the invisible case of your report, is funds. We've applied for European projects with deep sea biology as in the background, but to support the development of Challenger. We haven't been successful yet, but the opening of Horizon Europe again to the UK scientists, I think it's fundamental, and I'm confident we'll get there.
Yes, and I think it's important to note that we, while we are seeking funding and writing grant proposals to try and attract further funding, and now we're back in Horizon, that's going to be much more straightforward, I hope. We've been very fortunate to be funded by the Science and Innovation Network to hold a workshop to actually further develop our plans and to help build a strong case for further funding from a variety of funders. So that's fantastic that we've been given that opportunity, and I want to thank Federico for helping with that. So that workshop will take place in March, and from that we hope, in Aveiro, and from that we hope will be the seeds and the beginnings of a proposal that can then go into multiple funders to help further and deepen our collaboration.
That's really exciting. Thank you. I think we have time for one question from the audience to our panelists today about the collaboration, oceans, or we can leave it to the coffee break in the end. Can do both. Any questions? Good. I hope you're as excited as I am about the future of this collaboration. I think that's a good way of saying back to the future with the UK back in the Horizon Europe. A lot of room for collaborations. Oceans is such a strategic area of interest of both countries, and I do believe there's such a great opportunity going forward and I wish the best of luck to the workshop, and fingers crossed for those grant applications. Thank you very much. Please a round of applause too. Thank you. Obrigado. And I hand it back over to Federico. Thank you. Obrigado.
Thank you very much, Diogo. Thank you very much, Carrie and Hannah. And as we will move on to the next element of the program, and I'll invite Silvia Castro, the moderator for the roundtable session, to take her place on the stage. Silvia, I'll allow you to to bring the other speakers to the stage.
Okay.
Okay. And so Silvia is the executive director of CMU Portugal program. And there is a mistake. You'll see she's also affiliated with INESC ID and not University Nova, as it shows there. My apologies, but we couldn't correct it on time. So thank you, Silvia, for being here.
Thank you, Federico. So welcome all to this session. I'm very happy to be here. I think my time at UK was really critical in the development of my career path in innovation and science policy and science communication. I'm always very happy to collaborate with the British Embassy here in Portugal whenever possible. So I would like to, in this roundtable, we're going to talk about a little bit about the assessment of the current state of bilateral relationships between the UK and Portugal. And also from the perspective of the participants in the roundtable. We are very lucky to have participants that have different roles in academia, in entrepreneurship, and in research, and also based on the participation of the UK from January onwards on the Horizon Europe and the Copernicus program. Also, and the results of the report by PARSUK UK also try to develop or assess some mechanisms that could improve and strengthen the relationships between the two countries. So I would like to welcome to the stage the participants of this roundtable, Paulo Jorge Ferreira, President of the Council of Rectors of Portuguese Universities. We'll also want to welcome, if you can just join us on stage, please. And also Mónica Betancourt Dias, that is a group leader of the Instituto Gulbenkian of Science and also chair of the EU Life Consortium. Domingos Barbosa, that is a senior researcher of the Institute of Telecommunications and also founder of a startup, Atlar. And Helena Muniz, that is professor at Faculdade de Letras da Universidade de Lisbon and also researcher at Inesquide. Thank you all for participating in this roundtable. So I have some questions, but we can always, I hope we have time at the end to have some questions from the audience as well. So I would like to start with the President of the Council of Rectors, if it's okay. Paulo Jorge Ferreira is the Rector of the University of Aveiro and also recently appointed the President of the Council of Rectors of the Portuguese Universities, and also has an extensive career in different management roles in the higher education system. So as a starting point, I would like to ask for what's your assessment of the current relationships between higher institutions in Portugal and UK, and what are the strengths and opportunities to further develop these relationships between the universities in both countries? I think you have a mic there.
And I think it's working. So good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mr. Ambassador, Mrs. Elvira Fortunato, Minister of Science, Technology and Higher Education in Portugal. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for inviting me. The question was as to the status of collaboration between Portuguese universities and those in the UK, if I understood it correctly. There were two big blows on that connection, which historically was very, very strong. One of them was the Brexit, and the other was the pandemic of COVID-19. My reaction to it was, well, Brexit is something like a political event, and research should be understood in connection with other realities, not as much the political one. So I had the hope of seeing researchers that were connected by common interest in science reconnect their works as soon as possible after the turmoil, after all the dust had settled down. And I think we are seeing it. We are seeing people in one side of Europe talking to people in a point in Europe, that's the United Kingdom. It didn't move anywhere, it didn't go offshore, so it's still where it was, fortunately, and the distance is short, and the distance from science to science topic is very short. So I think there is time to rebuild and reconnect this set of researchers and take advantage of something that it's very important. There was a culture of collaboration, a very strong culture of collaboration between these two countries and these two realities. The generation before me was mostly, their study environment was in the UK, so that created a second generation of people that also had strong links to the United Kingdom. And I don't think that's a political thing like a Brexit will put a stop to all of this. We need to be resilient as to that, look at science as what we do, and try to make the most out of this. Eventually, some other more political decisions will be made that make our effort simpler. And I'm glad to report that some of them have already occurred. We have the United Kingdom in the horizon Europe, and mobility seems to be something of my concern now. I would rather have mobility space open to the United Kingdom in a more clear way. Also, there is something that's still not quite right, and that's the concept of European university. Europe has launched this initiative, European universities. Those are institutions made of alliances across Europe, the goal of which is to think about the future of the European higher education space. And I don't think we should not draw that space without including the United Kingdom in it. And this part is still not satisfactorily solved as far as I see. It's a challenge for the future. It's a challenge, I hope, for the near future.
Thank you. I will now move to Monica Betancourt-Dias. That is a group leader, like I mentioned, at the AGC and led the institution in the past 4 years and also share of your life. But Monica, you had a very extensive formative period in the UK, in the PhD, in research afterwards. And also, we saw from the report that early career and mid-career researchers are like key to initiate and sustain scientific collaborations. So based on your own experience on this aspect, how did that experience impact the collaborations between UK and Portugal when you returned to Portugal in 2006, I think?
Yes, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. So thinking about my own path in science, I was 9 years in the UK and then came back to Portugal. I was part of a PhD program, the Gulbenkian PhD program, also funded by FCT, that we had many people in the UK, many people, and many of them then returned to Portugal. Also at the Gulbenkian Institute, many of our group leaders came from the UK, and thinking about the 9 last people that we recruited as group leaders, 4 of them have experience from the UK, only 1 is Portuguese, the other ones are foreigners, but clearly the UK is a very strong power in science when you think about recruiting talent. And thinking about the role of these people, so in my case, for example, I continued collaborations with my own supervisor and other people that I had met in the UK. Also, when I came back to Portugal, there was something called Convênio Gris British Council. That was something to promote bilateral collaboration, whereby I organized a series of seminars that also, again, promoted collaboration between the UK and Portugal. Thinking about one of our other group leaders, Luís Teixeira, he came back with a grant from the UK, from the Wellcome Trust, a collaborative grant that, again, brought more collaborations. More recently, one of our group leaders, Maurice Strick from the Crick Institute, that came to the IGC, he brought the grant from the Wellcome Trust. And we have another group leader, Ricardo Henriques, that came back recently from UCL. He was a chair at UCL and came back to Portugal. And he brought the collaborative grant from the Wellcome Trust, also with several group leaders, some from the UK. So definitely I would think that in research, we know that scientists like to drive their own path. And that's the good thing, because they have to search for new ways of solving problems. So bottom up often works better than top down. You can tell scientists what to do, but normally works better if they want to do it. And so definitely those, empowering them to continue those collaborations for those that were in the UK, and for the other ones to start those collaborations through having money for workshops, as you were saying, where people can meet and then think about the grants that they want to apply together. I think that's the best thing, basically, is to have ways of funding those encounters, and that bottom up, that I think it's the strongest way of getting these things to work.
I must say that I also did a PhD at UK from the GABA program that was also funded by FCT. And my first position was at IGC as well. And besides research, I think also the science communication community also learned a lot about these interactions and collaborations between the UK and Portugal. I think it was thanks to Ana Godinho also that was at IGC, and I think it was really a first step in developing this community of science communication in Portugal.
Very quickly, so because the UK is very well developed in the area of science and society, so myself, while I was doing my postdoc, I did a 2-year science communication diploma at the Birkbeck College in the UK. And definitely many of the people that we know that have gone into science communication have done studies in the UK. So that's also a clear area that we can explore more.
Thank you, Monica. Now I can address the next question for Domingos Barbosa. He's a senior researcher at the Instituto de Telecomunicações and also the coordinator of the Engaged SCA infrastructure and the founder of a startup at LAR. So thank you for joining us. You also had an experience of a fellowship, a Marie Curie fellowship at the UK. So also that formative stage there as well. But as coordinator of the Engaged SCA infrastructure, I think, how do you think this initiative will drive collaboration between Portugal and the UK, specifically in the innovation in space field?
Okay, so it has been actually very good. It's already driving since several years. When we started Engage SKA formally, it started in 2017. But informally, through other projects, that collaboration started probably 2010, 2011. So there is a legacy and a past over it. And these things require a long-term bets and a long-term presence of key people with a lot of young people passing by. The Engage SKA is a research infrastructure of the national roadmap. We hope that this will thrive further in the near future. It's a node of a large-scale infrastructure called SCA, which is a network of sensors for astronomy that have a curiosity, has a global reach, and is being installed in the Southern Hemisphere between South Africa and Australia, with headquarters in the UK, Manchester, more precisely. And so there is a strong presence of many key countries at the moment, and is federating countries from China, India, most of the European countries, UK, South Africa, Australia, Canada. So it's becoming, after CERN and after, in some sense, the European Space Agency is becoming one of the top large-scale research infrastructures. And as a large-scale infrastructure, it's not meant for space, it's on ground, and its main topic that is identified in the UK agenda, and I hope that it will also be part of this here, is in one of the key projects for the digital agendas in Europe, in the UK, and in the country. In Portugal, we installed a supercomputer of €1 million in Évora that is part of the National Network for Advanced Computing to foster a series of developments that associate also British colleagues. And this has been driving a number of direct and indirect or spin-off developments. Probably the indirect and the spin-off developments are more interesting than the direct, because the direct developments are usually what PARSUK maps, which is publications, patents, and so on, things that are easily accessible. But what drives value is mostly the indirect indicators. And indirect indicators, for example, we have been collaborating with the Royal Society about development of skilled human resources in Africa and in the developing world. We took advantage of the Aga Khan Development Network and FCT agreements, and we had an extensive collaboration with countries like Mozambique and South Africa. So South Africa had, with the Royal Society in the UK, €3 million project to foster a long-term formation, advanced formation, and paying tuition fees for masters and PhD students, trainees, technicians, and creating conditions for a skillful job in information technologies We jump on that with the AKDN and FCT. We also, after this digital agenda, we created the seeds to promote Portugal to become a member of the European Space Surveillance and Tracking Program. So the EU SST, as it is called, and EU SST is becoming one of the three main pillars of the space program in Europe. One is Copernicus, the other is Galileo, and the third is EU SST, which is mainly driven by the Ministry of Defense. And through that, we created the Space Observatory, a part with funds by FCT in the beginning, and then by contract with EU SST. It is the only space observatory in the country, by the way. It's in the center of the country. It's beautiful. Astrophotographers like it very much to go there and make parties. Is wonderful. And actually, how did we manage to get to UK? Well, directly and indirectly, at the time, we benefited from the UK leaving the EU SST, because when the UK left Europe, there was a sudden cut in the Horizon 2000, Horizon Europe discussions, and the UK was a key member of the EU SST program, is coming now, and so the budget of the UK was left spreading over, and we and France took advantage of that, and actually we got the tasks of the UK, part of the task of the UK, together with CNES in Paris, and we installed new types of equipment that were supposed to be developed with the UK. So we developed those telescope sensors for space surveillance and tracking under contract with the Ministry of Defense, and they are now becoming a partnership with UK once UK becomes part of the EU SST. And of course, we had the entrepreneurship. So Engage SKA, when we fostered this many years ago, we had to create an ecosystem. Critical mass in these areas is quite small, so we had to federate a number of universities, of research labs, and create the conditions to aggregate companies to execute specific parts of the program. Because academia is very good to form, but it's not very good to run facilities, and it's not very good to run infrastructure, because these represent costs. And universities don't like to pay too much costs for this, because they want that money to go for grants and to pay salaries. That's understandable. So after some time, we decided that once Portugal formalized its membership into the SKA, it was time to trigger the opportunities and create, like in the UK, and we were taking the example, and we were being nurtured by UKRI, by the way, to do that. We created 8 companies to foster services in information technologies in a very specific cutting edge, which is high performance computing, cloud, and artificial intelligence. The company is thriving now. We hope to participate in an ecosystem of UK and Portuguese companies around universities. And for example, we attracted the attentions, and I cannot, I'm a co-founder, but I cannot speak because I'm not an executive member of the company. It's important to realize, because sometimes research labs want us to go explicit about this. But we are addressing sustainability and power sustainability of smart factories in Europe. And this is going well. So
I hope we can still have time to talk a little bit about your experience with the ATWAR and the contracts that you operate with the UK later on. Thank you. We now have Helena Muniz, that is professor of Faculdade de Letras of the University of Lisbon. She's also a researcher at ISNESC. She's the president of the Association for Machine Translation, the European and also the International Association for Machine Translation, and she is the chair of the Ethics Committee for Responsible AI. But Helena also collaborates with research institutes in the UK, mainly with with the Trinity College and the Dublin City University. And one thing that we heard before was also how important is the role of mobility of researchers between institutions in Portugal and UK. So I would like to first ask you how this international experience shaped your research here in Portugal.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me, for the invitation. It's great to have a question from Sylvia. We know each other for quite a few years. So it really shaped who I am, what I've done in my life, because I felt I was sent by my supervisor against my will, I would say, to Trinity College. I was very scared at the time, never had an international experience abroad. And she said, you need to go, you need to broaden your horizons and learn and come back with this energy to give us all this, what you have absorbed there. And I would highlight 3 things that for me were essential. And I keep thinking of these 3 things as lessons for me in my life. One is the intense discussions in the labs. People would just bring a coffee and say, what you're doing. And we were obliged to say it in a very clear way that everyone would understand, even not being from that topic or not understanding the scientific jargon of that topic. Another thing that for me was very important, I never worked on labs that had only speech or language scientists, engineers. I always worked in labs with multidisciplinary teams, so with therapists, linguists, sociologists, psychologists, and engineers. And when you bring this multiplicity of voices into the same room, you have such a rich angle of a problem. And you see it very diversely. So I brought this to my own studies. Another thing is this strong culture of what you do is not to put in a drawer. It's to give back to society. And you need to align what you do to society to create, like we heard from Mariano Gago, social good. You need to give back to society with the research you do, and you need to communicate this in very clear ways, what you're doing and why this may have impact. So these 3 lessons are still with me today.
Thank you, Elena. I would like now to go back to the president of group, and also with this new partnering of the UK into Horizon Europe and the Copernicus component of the space program, and how are the Portuguese universities preparing themselves to strengthen this collaboration with the UK now that these opportunities are going to be open again, and also, like you mentioned, how to recover from the COVID experience and move forward in strengthening these relationships between universities in Portugal and the UK.
Well, thank you. I think the question was also about, if I understood it correctly, do we need any special structures to do that?
We also heard from the president of FCT early on about these new mobility programs that are going to set up, and also what, in your opinion, will benefit the Portuguese universities in establishing new mechanisms or strategies to foster these collaborations.
Yes, if we look at how the world of research looks like in connection with United Kingdom, and there are tools to see that. So I used SciVal, which can show you in Portugal how many collaborations, how many joint papers have been written between one institution and collectively all the institutions in the United Kingdom. And for example, in the University of Aveiro, the number of collaborating institutions with Aveiro in one vertex and the United Kingdom in the other was over 212 this morning, if I'm not mistaken. And the number of joint papers was over 800. So I don't think we need to put people into contact. They are already in contact. They are already working. Some of them, despite everything, every stone on the way, they kept working throughout the pandemic, throughout all the Brexit process. So I wouldn't say we need structures, as they are already doing it. And those structures, let's call them associations, for example, or other, would probably make things more complex and would not be special enablers, but sometimes blocking forces instead. So I would say let these connections continue, but maybe steer them a little by offering programs and research areas that are more important to these countries, these two countries, so that effort can be put in those areas priority. And this could be an effective way of steering all these connections and research effort that has been going on for a while, and it should go on. I tend to go back to the European universities because this is something that it's very important for me. The European University Initiative is not complete unless we add to the alliances elements from the United Kingdom. It does not make sense with the goals that we have set to ourselves, with our call for future action, with our ideas for the future of higher education in Europe, call that universities, European universities, and leave such an important partner out. So may I say and repeat, I know it's the second time I mentioned this, but important things should be stressed until people are usually bored of hearing it. We need a solution to encompass institutions from the United Kingdom in those alliances. Some are doing work along the same lines. Some could learn from some universities, and our universities could learn from theirs. And the history of higher education in Europe has been, ever since the medieval institutions, a work of collaboration, a work that started in one language, Latin, and it's tending to one language, English. And it's very ironic that English is now the common language of many European universities, and that not even one university from that country is present in the meetings. So I will leave you with that matter for thought. Are we doing it right?
Thank you. Monica, besides your role at the Institute Gulbenkian Ciência, you also share of the research institutes of life science in Europe, the ULife. And how are these institutes preparing to engage UK in the next phase that is welcoming back the UK in the RS and Europe program?
So the ULife Alliance of Research Institutes is an alliance of 15 institutes in the life sciences that are spread all over Europe and that aim to exchange, good practice, like how do you run a research institute, how do you train people, but also to influence Europe in terms of where science should go. It's two main roles. And the UK has always been a very important partner. We have one institute from the UK, and they're thinking about expanding. And we were part of the campaigns to bring UK back to Horizon Europe because we thought, it's there's so much good science that in the UK it's really almost impossible to think about science in Europe without thinking about the UK. And in the past we organized from ULife several initiatives that the UK was part. So one of them was the Orion project, which was focused on open science. The other one was the Libre project, so again with many different institutes were focused on gender equality in science, where the UK had a very important role because the UK for a long time has been worried about this, and they had the Athena Swan project where institutions would get the seal for having good benchmarking or good KPIs in terms of gender equality, and the partner from the UK was very important in this common project. So thinking about the future, I think it is again, very important to have the UK back in terms of applying together, because we have institutes from different countries to many different projects. Also thinking about Portugal, We have, as Madalena Alves has already said, there's the widening program, which Portugal is part of, in part because our innovation is not as good as many other European countries, and whereby we can we can create new networks of science with other better performing countries in Europe, but also we can team with other research institutes to actually make new institutions or improve institutions, science institutions in Portugal. And it was really bad to not have UK in this program because we have such good institutions in the UK that was great to be, team with, and we could not think about that. So having that back, I think, will be great to Portugal and other institutes in EU Life that are part of the widening program. And in part, again, I bring back this idea of promoting innovation in Portugal. I mean, science is very good and has been developing, but the part of innovation is less developed in Portugal. So, for example, we at the IGC, together with ITQ Binova, have an innovation office. And when we were searching for the head of our innovation office, we actually brought back a Portuguese that was at UCL in London. And then when she was organizing activities like a proof of concept initiative to promote projects to go from the discovery phase to the more applied phase, she brought reviewers, a lot of reviewers from the UK and UK universities and companies. So again, I think there's many different areas where the partnership with the UK will be great in the future. I think, again, it would be great to have maybe some seed funding that can promote these workshops or the traveling, the mobility of the researchers to actually start talking in terms of the grants that they want to apply together.
Thank you, Monica. And picking up on the innovation topic that you mentioned, I would like to bring the conversation back to Domingos. And I know you already mentioned that you're not in the executive part of the startup, but you are one of the founders, and the company has the largest Portuguese software contracts with SCA Observatory in the UK. So in your opinion, and from your experience, what are the challenges for technology and innovation transfer between the UK and Portugal? And do you have some ideas how we can improve and facilitate this? I know bureaucracy, like I mentioned before in the report, is one of the points that was highlighted.
It's a very difficult question because innovation is expensive to start. It's very expensive. And it's also very tricky because there is a blurred or gray zone between the discovery phase and the applied phase, so to speak. And when you go to the applied phase, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to extract value or economical value. We faced quite good failure rate on that until we had some success. And we fostered this creation of the startups out of it. So we try to identify, to map on our activities, and being actors in large-scale infrastructures of global reach, we partitioned the project in several parts, trying to identify which parts was suitable to us, suitable to our skills, and suitable to create that ecosystem with application. Knowing that we face two things. One is that academia is more or less closed in terms, it's a very slow rate of change in terms of human resources. So the people that we form will not going to be absorbed. Probably more than 50% of the human resources that pass through us will go elsewhere, to the industry, to other places, and so on. And they will enrich society. But also, because since we are performing our duties in the digital world, in the digital agenda, the job market for information technologies is so hot that we are going to lose people anyway, very, very fast. And we are going to lose talent very quickly. So we had to to start thinking ahead that we need to foster an ecosystem with small, high-tech, cutting-edge companies that can absorb some of this talent and actually serve the academia through building, through applications, and so forth. They support also the discovery phase. UK they have some maturity in doing that around the hubs in Cambridge, Manchester, and so on. So they helped us a lot on that. And the second was a thing that came first indirectly, because the project, the large-scale infrastructure, adopted the Carnegie Mellon Software Institute recommendations. And so the whole project that was spawning about 300 million euros of investment in direct research in digital infrastructure changed dramatically. And we adopted, through the recommendation of UK and a couple of countries, the notion of relational contracts. Now, and this is something that is quite difficult to understand for many people that are used to monolithic decisions, including companies that are usually monolithic in this sector. So relational contracts, as the name indicates, puts the direct relation between the person that is hired to do a job for a certain part and the client. So when you hire a company to do a specific consultancy or development, you don't hire that company because that company is good to do that. You hire that company because that company has Mr. John and Miss Mary that are extremely good in doing that. And you want Mr. John and Mr. Mary to do that job. And if they leave the company, the contract may be closed. So this is a consequence of the hot activity in the information technologies, but also an understanding of this sector that talent and knowledge are in people's heads. People are becoming very mobile, and you have to address this within the cutting-edge companies. So we adopted that part of the relational contract. It's been quite a powerful lesson. It's not easily understood with agencies, funding agencies, because they are used to other frameworks. And it's a paradigm change. And it's going to stay and last, fortunately, because it values people, key people. That was our understanding. So thriving startups was only possible because we nurtured these people and said, yes, they want us because they want you. Yep. And they felt happy about it.
The value of people.
The value of people is very important.
Elena, you're also the chair of the ethical committee of the Responsible AI project from the PRR. And what strategies are being put in place to develop the discussion of responsible AI practices with the UK? Do you see, like, now that UK is joining back the Horizon Europe program, can it help shape the public policies in that area? And can Portugal and UK share a common agenda on this topic as well?
I think it's yes for all your questions or sub-questions. So yes, and we just started. So the Center for Responsible AI is a big initiative with more than 20 partners, industry, research partners, 7 institutes, research institutes, and industry groups like Pestana, Sonai, Bial, so major players in Portugal. And this center has this very ambitious project of creating the new generation of responsible AI products. What does this mean, responsible AI products? So the next generation of products that are accountable, ethical, and are in social good, or created for social good, like medical devices, medical assistants, and so on. So basically, we just started very recently with Federico Lira and the UK Embassy, who has been so flexible, diligent, and very fluid in this conversation. Thank you very much. We just started a proposal. We submitted a proposal for the Science Foundation on the Science for Policy call, and the idea is to align research with policymakers and to bring to concrete ideas how to make ethics a reality in these products. So basically what we want to do is to transpose these fancy names that everybody's using, like sustainability, explainability, privacy, and so on, to concrete measures, guidelines, and implementations in these projects. And the idea is to tackle that in a holistic view based on case studies, so products, initiatives from industry and research centers, combining fundamental research with products and startups. This is an effort led by Anbeba, by the way. And the idea is to have this holistic view that you don't need just Altai or European AI Act as a checklist. You need much more than that. You need much more than moral dilemmas. So you need to look at the pains of industry, like Domingos was explaining in a bit. And you need to overcome that with policymakers so it makes a reality in our country. And the alignment with the UK Embassy was fundamental because Frederico brought the Turing Institute to this proposal, and their perspective on ethical and responsible AI, like they already explicited in the UK AI Summit, it's very aligned with the Center for Responsible AI. And we cannot be a center, isolated center from the world in this initiative, because like the title of this event, there are global challenges, and I think they can only be overcome or surpassed by collaboration and dialogue. Here in this event specifically with the UK, but on responsible AI, we need to be broader. So just one final note, if I may. That's why we're also aligning with the United Nations, and we have representatives on the ethical committee of people on the United Nations and the advisory board for AI on the United Nations to align these products with sustainable developmental goals from the United Nations.
Thank you. I didn't know about that proposal, so it's good to know. I think we still have some time for questions from the audience. So do you have any questions for our panelists today? We're all very shy this morning. Minister, please.
So thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. It is a really pleasure for me to be here. I just read a little bit the work done, the study. I would like to ask, for example, concerning, because for me, mobility and the training, the advanced training of the next generation of scientists are quite important. And we should invest more in this area. And for me, the PhD grants are quite special. And I would like to know, between Portugal and the Portuguese universities and the British universities, how many PhD grants have been done in association? Not only with the dual degree, but for example, to have also a supervisor in the UK and also a co-supervisor in Portugal. I would like to know about these numbers concerning PhD grants.
I think the question may be directed to Diogo.
Do I have the authorization?
Yeah, of course.
I think I have double microphone. I think it's a very important question, and I think the way we approached it in the report is to really identify where there was more than one country involved in the collaboration, more than one institution, and we have a few numbers in terms of looking at those particular examples. But unfortunately, we did not go into the level of detail of analyzing each one of those grants, but there are a few actually from within the report where you see some of the, for example, some of the grantees who are doing some time of their research in one institution and the other institution, which gives us a proxy of having at least 2 co-supervisors in different institutions. We have those numbers on the back, and there's a secondary analysis we do on the back of this report, but there are a few, and I do agree, I think there's a huge potential to zoom in into those and understanding how those were created in relation to the more traditional ones. I'm happy to share that in more detail. Thank you.
Do we have more questions? Mr. Ambassador?
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you very much to all the panelists for some very, very interesting interventions. So I just wanted to ask, I think almost everybody who has spoken so far in this event has made some reference to the UK's association or reassociation with the European programs, with Horizon Europe and Copernicus. It does seem to me, as I tried to say in my remarks at the beginning, that is a kind of game-changing development for UK-Europe science collaboration. But I'm also interested to know whether any of the panelists, speaking from their own experience, can sort of offer any insight into how much ground we lost, if you like, during the sort of 2.5 years, 3 years when the UK was effectively locked out of those programs, and how you see the challenges of sort of recovering that lost ground, if that's a reasonable question. Thank you.
Monica, please.
So just from it's a very good question, just from the ERC perspective, European Research Council, so 2 different levels. So you lost one researcher that came to our institute, got an ERC, couldn't go to the UK, came to us. He was at the Creek, actually, at the UK. But also from ERC panel members, it's been like a big difference not to have UK scientists being interviewed, for example, because you have a very high quality of science. Many people from the UK get ERCs. And so it's actually a shame for European science and for the ERC not having UK scientists. I think that will be recovered soon because it's bottom up. At the level of the interactions between institutions, I think people are so eager and the communications between researchers continue that I think it will be very fast. At the level of very big institutions like universities, I'll let my colleagues answer that one.
Domingos, you talk not about losses, but winnings of the UK being absent during these 2 years.
Yes, there are mixed feelings, of course, about this, like shared by all of us. On the winnings, well, we inherited parts of the UK roadmap for the USSD, and we brought it together. Now it's recovering, but we also lost the presence on the digital agenda in the Horizon Europe, in particular connected to Euro HPC and to the cloud services across a number of projects that use data and specifically that thrive information. Data, there are a lot of providers, but information is key. And this has been a tremendous impact. And I think it's on all of us. We lost projects because of this. The UK was a driving force out of it. Projects got smaller, but was also an insight that was lost. For example, a number of particular British universities are world leaders in information technologies. And that being set apart, and it took a while even for them to realize that their exposure to the American market was not as successful as they were hoping for. Things are now settling, and I think we are just turning the page and going forward.
Paulo Jorge Ferreira, if you have a comment on this.
Yeah, there's another line of worrying in the future, so many. And one has to do with excellence in research and our capacity to turn research into innovation. And in Europe, in the UK, there is, of course, excellence in research, but there's work to do as for our joint capacity to turn that into innovation, new business ideas, creative people that go out and start new lines of business that nobody yet had started. And I think to do this in a better way, we need to interconnect institutions much further. We need to look also at their incubators, their science parks, and connect them together, expose one to another. And so we need a much more tighter network to do that than we need to do research. And I think the second generation of problems that we could have to solve after solving these ones related to research and the research network would have to deal with the innovation network and how to do innovation in Europe in a competitive, of course, but also collaborative way.
Thank you.
May I just add a few things? So from my own experience in our labs, as you know from living 5 years in Portugal, Portuguese have ways around. So we had a project really in the transition to the Brexit and all that. The University of Edinburgh was the coordinator. And due to this disruptive moment, they could not continue to be the coordinator. So we had to change, but they embraced this project so much that they continue as members. So that's a very strong signal. I'm very optimistic, so that's a very strong signal that collaborations can continue, and you may find workarounds. We don't need those workarounds probably anymore, because they're here to stay the horizon. I share a lot of the views here. I believe there's huge challenges, and working on language. So we didn't speak about this topic. I don't know why. This is the only event in the year that I don't talk about ChatGPT or large language models, but that's the thing. So there's a huge potential for innovation in Europe, but a lot of this has been played in America. Either we understand that this will be a big challenge for us in the near future, and we need collaborations to stand, to not face this alone, or it will be an even bigger gap between America and Europe in the next years. So I really second the opinion that was already stated.
Thank you. One last comment, Monica, that you want to complement your answer? We lost Mark.
Just a very quick comment to the ambassador, actually, because one thing that I see, actually, it's a big change from when I did my PhD. At that time, everyone wanted to go to the UK. Now, for political reasons, Brexit, you really see a lot of people that say, no, UK, I don't want to go. So there really must be huge effort, and these science diplomacy things are very important in that sense, because I really see a lot of people not wanting to go because they don't feel welcomed, basically. So I don't want to end in that note, but let's think about activities that would promote that in a good sense.
And I also would like to comment just on to what Helena Muniz said about mainly in responsible AI practices regulations, the difference between the more freedom kind of way in the US and more restricted in Europe, and how we balance these two so we don't lose competition in that area. I think will be a very important topic to discuss, the different policies between the two. So thank you to all the panelists. We just have one question. Sorry, I thought we lost. Okay, I thought we were out of time. That's why I was closing. But if Frederico says we can, we just. We can hear both questions and then we. Okay. So you don't say that we are delayed because of me. It's because of you.
No, I think the conversation is getting so good. Just a comment on and the question to the panel, to the minister who was asking about those bilateral PhDs. I couldn't go home with a. Knowing that I wouldn't give you a specific answer because I gave a little bit of a political one before, said a lot but not much. Within those PhDs that I identified, there's about 11 of them that at least were likely to be bolsas mistas. And we gave a little bit of detail that those go for Portuguese going to the UK, but also British coming to Portugal and collaborating with countries like Norway, Spain, and others? Just want to give you that 11 number so I wouldn't go home without giving a proper answer. But just to the panel, to finalize, and I think, Monica, you've made this beautiful comment about the bottom-up approach. It's maybe a question to the whole panel. International collaboration, is it possible to really advance in science innovation globally only with the bottom-up? And just a little bit of a reflection on that, what the role is of the bottom-up approaches, but also the top-down. Where are those needed and where are those not needed? Thank you.
There was another question set.
It's more a comment than a question, something that I think we all should think about. We talk a lot about our PhD experience abroad, in the UK specifically in this case. But I think we should start thinking earlier. And there's fewer and fewer mechanisms to bring undergraduates to the UK. And I feel what Monica says is sometimes they don't feel welcome. And that's something we should take care of and think of mechanisms to simplify sending undergrad students to labs, to research vessels in our case, and to actually have the experience to work in UK labs.
Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, Monica, if you can comment to the question of Diogo.
I was thinking, so I think clearly you need the bottom-up, but you also need the top-down for strategy, because the institutions need to have, and the country needs to have a strategy. So in that sense, you need to work top-down. I think, for example, the widening program is a very good program to have projects like the teaming projects where you team with another institution, or the twinning where you have these networks that you establish that can also be worked. So you know that there is a research field that you really need to intensify your effort, and then you can promote one of those activities by convincing some of your researchers to work on them. So I think it's really a mix. We need definitely both, and it's not just bottom-up, but you need to engage the researchers with something that they like. Anyway, if you have good partners, if you have workshops that you promote contact between people, then scientists are like-minded, they get enthusiastic about the science and they want to collaborate, so then everything happens from then onwards.
I don't know if anyone wants to comment, last comment about the mobility. You said I thought about you because you said you were not very motivated to go at first, and then you just end up being a very good experience.
So just to, I didn't have, it was wonderful at the end, and then I was very thankful, but at the beginning it was quite overwhelming. Just one thing about the bottom-up and the top-down before I go to your comment, a really nice comment. I think there are two different narratives at the moment, to be honest with you. I think there's well-planned top-down structures, financial projects, and so on. But the bottom-up, we need to come up earlier, even in high school. So just let me tell you about this Finnish program going on right now. They go to schools, primary schools, and they teach artificial intelligence, what does it mean to kids, so they understand the risks. And they go to high school and so on. And it starts from really bottom up, if you want. On the conscience of citizenship and democracy values, there are at danger, I would say, at least at risk in Europe right now. And if you don't start bottom up, you will face a few consequences in the future. I'm optimistic, but that will go on, because a lot of the times you say all these terms, but people don't understand this effectively. On the top-down narrative, there's, for instance, something that I really think it's a way to go. Europe is financing high-risk projects. You have a very nice idea. You don't know if this will be okay, but you can have at least 2 million to start this idea if you prove that this idea can go on. So this is something that I think we need to rethink the top-down structure, otherwise we won't cope with innovation and new steps in the future. Just about your program, about your comment, I totally relate to your comment personally, and I think we need to work more on how to host people, either in Portugal or elsewhere. And for instance, for me, Columbia University in New York was a great example of that, because you had a welcome party when you arrived. I don't know if we want to go that way, but it was a really nice way to put you in place and talking to everyone.
Okay, I don't know, Paul, if you want to comment on that, of the mobility, incentivating mobility programs between Portugal and UK, just to finish the last comment.
Yes, we have.
But
I think we all know that Erasmus is one of the most successful programs in the United Union. I think it's something that should go on because it's creating a new set of citizens with more language skills that understand Europe, their differences and their values. And I think they will be promoters of peace and of a new vision on this continent. On the other hand, I also know that, if I'm not mistaken, that United Kingdom has been investing in a similar program for mobility. So my question is, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could join these two programs, or at least have them happening side by side, and recover mobility and include in the mobility cloud also the United Kingdom?
Thank you all to the panelists here in this roundtable. We are running out of time already, but a round of applause to all these talks and interventions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Sylvia. And now that I jeopardize any timekeeping, we'll move on to some signing ceremonies before the closing remarks. Just to say on Turing and Erasmus that clearly there are similar programs, and I think the intention is really for institutions to speak with each other and agree on specifically on what they want to do. So I kind of ask you all to speak with your counterparts and identify the best thing to do. So without further ado, and with some support, we'll now kind of pass to the next element of the program, which is the signing of a partnership between Open Cosmos and connected companies for joint satellite missions. And I call Rafael Jorge Siqueira, CEO of Open Cosmos, and Tiago Rebelo, CEO of Connected. Thank you very much.
So 30 seconds each. Okay, 45. Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, thanks for having us. You will all be witnesses to, this signature ceremony of our partnership between Connected and Open Cosmos. And what a ride it has been this morning. We went all the way from the UK, Portugal, the Atlantic, deep sea, astrophysics, AI, and now space. So we reached the ultimate goal. So what are we doing here? Connected is, I think we call it startup these days. So it's a company that was born early this year. We are very much focused on solving problems that actually happen in some of the ecosystems that we spoke today. Ocean is one of them, which is basically how to take data from a remote off-grid area and bring it to where it is needed, which is at the scientists' desks, which is where we can then process it and use it. And we are doing it in a very unique way because we actually don't want to contribute to sustainability on Earth by hurting the sustainability in space. So we are actually taking a ride on third-party satellites to put our payload in there and provide this affordable connectivity service. And I guess I'll leave it to you to explain what we are doing together and maybe a little bit about Open Cosmos.
With pleasure. Thanks, Tiago, and it's wonderful actually to be here this morning. I've been listening with a lot of attention to the conversations happening this morning, and one word has come over and over and over. I think that you all have probably listened, and it's collaboration. Collaboration between countries, and thanks, Minister, for your presence here. I think that's really important. Collaborations also between universities, between scientists, and now between technology companies, right? For those of you that don't know Open Cosmos, I founded Open Cosmos 8 years ago. We've grown into one of the biggest small satellite manufacturers in Europe. We design, manufacture, and operate satellites. We obviously have a presence in the UK, where we were born, and we have now growing facilities in Spain and in Portugal. We are really excited actually to be starting to manufacture here. The ambassador has also mentioned the importance of the Atlantic constellation and the contract that we won a few weeks ago and announced during the UK Space Conference, and really excited actually about the announcements and partnerships that we are starting to build here, starting by this wonderful one with Tiago and his team at Connected, bringing Earth observation and IoT in situ connectivities on board of the same satellites is game-changing for a lot of the applications on the maritime environment. Imagining being able to take information and immediately correlate it with in situ measurements done by those vessels, by those scientific instruments that some of you are deploying. So without further ado, let's proceed to the signature, and thank you so much for your time and this really, really pleasurable event. Thank you so much.
So cool. So, thank you very much. Nice to see that collaborations are also getting commercial, which is good. It's the end game, and improving society and life in society is essential. So, but we have one more ceremony, and then signing ceremony between, as it has been already announced, of the protocol of the agreement between PARSUK UK and FCT. So I call Madalena Alves, president of FCT, and Diogo Martins, president of PARSUK, to kind of sign your agreement. And I believe there is a few copies over there, exactly. And obviously, if you want to say a few words before that, you are welcome as well. Thank you.
Okay, so let's sign the protocol.
So, and we kind of are on time, back on time, which is wonderful. And so we go. It's last element of our program today. We'll have then kind of some food out there for you to mingle and to network and start kind of can start thinking about the future collaborations. But for now, we'll kind of be joined remotely by Adam Jackson, Director, International Research and Innovation at the FCDO, the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office in the UK. And we see you, Adam. Can you hear us? Yes? So I think the floor is yours, or kind of the screen is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I just check that I'm coming through okay to you?
Yes, you are.
Fantastic, fantastic. Modern technology, huh? Which is one of the things we're all here for. So hello and good afternoon, everyone. I'm really delighted to close today's session alongside the Minister. I'm really sorry I'm not there in person. I had other engagements yesterday and later today, but I'm really looking forward to paying a full visit to Portugal and to Lisbon soon. I've been in post just over a year and have much longer than that to go, so I have plenty of time. So my name is Adam Jackson, and as you said, I am Director of International Research and Innovation. I'm actually at the UK's new Department for Science, Innovation and Technology now, rather than the FCDO, but we work extremely closely with our colleagues in the Embassy and in Whitehall. The Prime Minister set up our department in February this year, and I think we've spent 2023 quite productively. It was really great to witness the signing ceremony just now. I think the timing of this meeting is also really, really good. I'm sure you discussed a lot this morning, but the UK's association to Horizon Europe and Copernicus, which was formalised last week, alongside a visit to Brussels by our Secretary of State, is really, really good news. I went to Brussels with the Secretary of State. She met the Commissioner, and they had an extremely warm meeting, and there's a huge amount of goodwill on all sides as the UK re-enters in full a partnership that we've worked on obviously a very great deal as well in the past. So, that's a key element in our strategy of developing a wide network of international partnerships on science and research. And I really hope that the British and Portuguese scientists will be able to take full advantage of this opportunity and this robust basis for international collaboration. But of course, that is at the sort of multi-country and sort of Europe-wide level. But also, I certainly hear and understand from this morning's discussions that there's a huge amount of positive bilateral work between the UK and Portugal. I hear it was a really fruitful working morning to hear about all of the already existing strong partnerships and scientific collaborations between the UK and Portugal, and to debate avenues for continued collaboration in the years ahead. As I said, it was really great to see those two signing ceremonies. I think that shows really, really good intent. And more generally, I think the study on mapping scientific collaborations between Portugal and the UK provides a really excellent snapshot of the wealth of bilateral links between our two countries, and provides a great deal of material for the way ahead. So really, really good signals at the kind of Europe, EU-wide level for the UK, and also really good signals bilaterally in the UK-Portuguese relationship. So it's just good news all round, really. In terms of the UK's own funding measures, obviously, we will pay quite a substantial amount into Horizon, but we do also have a range of other international funds and programmes, both directly through departments and also through the UK's funding bodies and agreements with international counterparts. So in particular, I wanted to highlight a DCR tactical fund, which is a sort of much smaller but much more targeted fund that is designed to respond slightly more nimbly to particular proposals coming out of bilateral discussions, including the one that you heard about this morning on the Pan-Atlantic Research Network on biodiversity mapping. And that's a really, really good example of where I think we can do some more detailed, maybe slightly nimbler pieces of collaboration alongside the slightly slower, but maybe kind of longer burning kind of partnerships through things like Horizon. So yeah, we're keen to keep innovating, experimenting on kind of forms of partnership, and we will stay working very closely with colleagues in the embassy and kind of directly with colleagues in the Portuguese government as we do this. So thank you again for all the work you're doing on UK-Portugal ties on science and technology. It's really important, it really matters, and I think the omens are really good for the year ahead. And I also just wanted to say thanks, because I know that there's been a huge amount of hard work from colleagues on the UK side, on the Portuguese side, together with partners, PARSUK, FCT and Ciência Viva, to ensure that today's event went well. That's all really, really appreciated from the UK government side. And I hope and have heard that it has led to a very successful set of discussions, so that's brilliant. And I wish you all a really good rest of the day, and of course a very happy festive season and Christmas break when it comes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adam, and quite a nice touch to have the big band over. So to close the event, I will now call on stage kind of the Minister for Science, Higher Education and Technology of Portugal, Professor Elvira Fortunato.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It is for me a real pleasure to be here and to share with you, and allow me to share the report of PARSUK. First of all, I would like to congratulate our ambassador, the Chris Sainty, to be here in Portugal. I know that you are here for the last 5 years, so you spend your last 5 years also here in Portugal. I guess that you are leaving now at the end of the year to UK again, and also I wish you all the best in your new mission. I don't know where it is, but it was a real pleasure for Portugal to have you here, and also to have this connection between UK and the science between UK and Portugal. So thank you very much for supporting us and for supporting the science, because science has no countries, so science is global. Also, I would like to congratulate Adam Jackson, the Director International for Research and Innovation from UK. Also, and now I will switch to Portuguese. I have here just some Portuguese notes, and if you allow me, I will switch now to Portuguese language. Rosalia Vargas, é sempre um grande prazer estar aqui no Ciência Viva. Como sabe, eu sou fã do Ciência Viva. E, aliás, estava aqui há pouco, penso que a colega de Aveiro, a Ana Hilário, a dizer que temos que começar mais cedo, portanto, a enviar alunos, não ao nível de alunos de doutoramento, mas de níveis mais baixos. Nós temos em Portugal joias, diamantes, que não utilizamos ou que poderíamos ainda utilizar muito mais. Nós estamos aqui no Ciência Viva, que faz exatamente a ponte entre aquilo que se faz na ciência e aquilo que se faz nas escolas e se ensina às crianças pequeninas, porque é aí que nós temos que começar. Portanto, não é... A universidade, é evidente que nós, os alunos de doutoramento, são os nossos, são quando terminam as licenciaturas e os seus graus. Mas temos que começar muito antes. Eu penso que Portugal tem uma rede fantástica. Aliás, o Ciência Viva tem 21 centros Ciência Viva espalhados por todo o país. Aliás, temos pintas. Como é que é pinta? Portugal tem pinta, porque para além dos centros de Ciência Viva temos os clubes. Eu penso que também do nosso lado, do lado da investigação científica, nós temos que sair das nossas zonas de conforto e trabalhar também apoiar mais iniciativas do Ciência Viva nas universidades, nos institutos politécnicos, nos centros de investigação, exatamente para fazer esta miscigenação entre estas várias gerações. Portanto, nós temos os instrumentos, portanto, temos aqui ainda os saber utilizar mais e misturar mais estas áreas. Aliás, eu já há muitos anos, quase desde o início, no meu laboratório, também a minha faculdade, e penso que em Aveiro e muitas outras, mas ainda temos que fazer mais isso. Nós dedicamos uma semana toda para o Ciência Viva e recebemos alunos no âmbito do Ciência Viva desde os 9 anos até aos quase a entrarem para a universidade, até aos 17, exatamente. E é isso que nós também temos que fazer, sair um bocadinho das nossas áreas de conforto e trabalhar nomeadamente com a Ciência Viva, que tem esta aproximação tão grande às escolas. Queria também cumprimentar a Presidente da FCT, Madalena Alves, também o Diogo Martins, Presidente da PARSUK. Queria também cumprimentar aqui o colega Paulo Jorge Ferreira, reitor da Universidade de Aveiro, e neste momento também dar-lhe os parabéns porque iniciou recentemente as funções de Presidente do CRUP, portanto desejo-lhe tudo de bom e muito sucesso agora nestas novas funções. Queria também cumprimentar a Mónica Betancourt e todos os restantes que estão aqui presentes. Relativamente, queria só deixar aqui uma nota relativamente a este relatório da PARSUK, que eu gostei imenso, portanto acho, e todas aquelas perguntas que eu fiz é exatamente porque as outras associações para as quais a FCT e nós também financiamos as outras redes de cientistas noutros países também deveriam também fazer um relatório deste tipo, porque é muito bom nós termos os dados, sabermos quantos portugueses foram para... Portugueses ou pessoas que estejam em Portugal, não têm que ser portugueses, vão para os Estados, para o Reino Unido, quantos é que do Reino Unido vêm para Portugal, os projetos, as bolsas de doutoramento, as áreas. Aliás, eu até fiquei surpreendida porque sempre pensei, lá está, uma pessoa pensa, quando tem dados, é diferente, daí ser importante trabalharmos com dados e não no diz-que. Eu sempre achei que nós tínhamos muito a área, ou a maioria das bolsas de doutoramento e mesmo investigadores eram mais na área das ciências da vida. Fiquei admirada agora com os resultados, nomeadamente a nível de projetos, porque vejo que até a área do cancro é das áreas, pelo menos naquelas 5 identificadas, é a que tem menos colaboração. Portanto, a área do clima, a área dos oceanos, para mim foi uma novidade, portanto, e acho que é face a isso e a termos os dados que depois podemos até, com base nestes dados e nestes relatórios, até decidir do ponto de vista das políticas públicas. Para nós é muito importante ter estes documentos baseados em evidência científica, porque também está aqui um estudo a esse nível e, portanto, eu também sugeria aqui à Presidente da FCT que também falasse e que as outras associações que também são suportadas por nós, que também fizessem este tipo de estudos nos outros países, que eu acho que é extremamente importante. Foi aqui também referida a importância da colaboração entre estes dois países, e eu ia aqui também fazer um desafio relativamente, aliás, é evidente, foi aqui mencionado até pela Mónica Betancourt, que o bottom-up é muito importante, mas o top-down também é importante. Portanto, eu penso que temos que ter aqui um bocadinho de cada. Temos que ter bottom-up e temos que ter top-down. Mais bottom-up da parte das relações e do trabalho dos cientistas, das relações que desenvolvem, desde logo quando vão para lá com os supervisores das redes que acabam por ter, mas também temos que ter instrumentos que proporcionem e que facilitem esta colaboração. E uma das coisas que era importante nós termos era, ao invés, podemos continuar a ter protocolos, e temos muitos protocolos entre a FCT e muitas universidades de todo o mundo, mas eu acho que aqui era importante nós termos um protocolo, e penso que a PARSUK pode ter esse papel, ter essa importância, ter um protocolo entre a FCT e a UK Science and Innovation Network, exatamente para garantir, através destas duas agências de financiamento dos dois países, promoverem, por exemplo, calls de projetos conjuntos em que qualquer investigador, seja em Portugal, seja no Reino Unido, se possam candidatar, até com os conhecimentos, com os networks que já tenham ou não, mas acho que isso é muito importante. É importante ter relações entre universidades, mas eu acho que é muito mais importante termos um protocolo e alocarmos até um financiamento via FCT e outro via o Science and Innovation Network e promover projetos bilaterais entre os dois países. Portanto, é um desafio que eu aqui deixo, portanto, é importante existirem acordos entre a FCT e universidades do Reino Unido, mas eu acho que é muito mais importante, porque até acaba por ser muito mais transparente, acaba por envolver toda a comunidade científica, não só a que está em Portugal, mas também a que está no Reino Unido, para colaborar. Eu penso que isso é importante. Isto era um desafio que eu aqui deixava para o futuro. Outra área, e uma vez que a área dos oceanos foi tão falada, a área do clima e tudo isso, eu gostaria também aqui de referir, e uma vez que estamos aqui com parte da comunidade científica portuguesa, nós acabámos de assinar um acordo com a Universidade dos Açores, portanto, entre a FCT, entre a PT Space, entre o Air Center e entre a DGES, exatamente para promover um trabalho de investigação mais profundo na área precisamente do clima dos oceanos. Portanto, há um pacote financeiro de cerca de 18 milhões de euros, se não estou em erro, a 4 anos, exatamente para promover projetos, para promover bolsas de doutoramento, para promover todo este tipo, todas estas sinergias, mas em áreas específicas, nomeadamente na área do clima e dos oceanos, porque nós nos Açores temos um laboratório natural temos o mar, temos muito oceano. Eu penso que nós temos que olhar mais para o oceano do que aquilo que estamos a olhar. Portanto, neste momento temos um instrumento, temos a Universidade dos Açores, que também está a trabalhar nesta área, e, portanto, era um acordo que já estava para ser assinado há muitos anos. Aliás, foi uma das coisas, de duas coisas, que o Sr. Primeiro-Ministro me pediu para nós fazermos, é exatamente finalizar este acordo com a Universidade dos Açores, e conseguimos. E exatamente porque estamos a falar do oceano, não poderíamos deixar de assinar um acordo com a Universidade dos Açores sem também assinar um acordo com a Universidade da Madeira, e isso foi também assinado em simultâneo a semana passada. Portanto, relativamente ao projeto, ao relatório, era isso que eu queria dizer. Penso que é o primeiro que é feito, espero que não seja o primeiro agora de muitos futuros, porque, como disse, ter dados é extremamente importante. Eu agora gostava só de falar de algumas coisas, aliás, complementando um bocadinho aquilo que a Presidente da FCT acabou de dizer relativamente à FCT. Eu também gostaria de vos transmitir algumas notícias, porque, como sabem, as notícias boas nunca são notícias, e mesmo quando são boas notícias, como aconteceu a semana passada, há um jornalista que as consegue transformar boas notícias em más notícias, portanto, e nós ficamos a pensar que estamos a falar outra língua. Mas gostaria de vos dizer que nós vivemos um tempo de incerteza, como nunca vivemos, aliás, nós nunca vivemos um tempo como aquele que estamos a viver agora. Portanto, não estamos com uma crise, nós estamos com aquilo que se chama multicrises. Portanto, temos tempos de incerteza, temos tempos também com várias crises, e isso tem que nos fazer pensar e alertar para diversas situações. Eu gostaria também de vos dizer que, no âmbito daquilo que nós fizemos na área do Ministério da Ciência, Tecnologia e Ensino Superior nestes 21 anos, portanto, para além de toda a parte que foi feita no ensino superior, não vou referir agora a essa área, mas na área da ciência, uma das primeiras coisas que nós fizemos e que tomámos como prioridade no Ministério foi exatamente a questão das pessoas. Portanto, como sabem, tínhamos um problema, quer dizer, que acaba por ser também uma oportunidade de termos muitos investigadores com contratos que estão a terminar agora para o ano que vem, e mais no ano que vem e depois em 2025, contratos esses que eram, portanto, precários. Portanto, não havia continuidade de garantir que esses investigadores tivessem posições estáveis a nível nacional. Portanto, houve que fazer um trabalho grande, exatamente ver a sustentabilidade em termos orçamentais de todo o orçamento que a FCT dispõe, porque a FCT e a ciência não se limita só ao emprego científico, temos toda a parte dos projetos, temos toda a parte extremamente importante das bolsas de doutoramento, todo o nosso compromisso com as parcerias internacionais. Portanto, mas houve que fazer um trabalho com algum cuidado, e isso levou algum tempo. Exatamente, foram feitas muitas simulações, foram feitos estudos, e lançámos agora no dia 2 de novembro, e vai estar aberto durante o período concurso entre 18 de dezembro e 1 de março, o FCT Tenure. Portanto, eu penso que com este programa, que é um programa completamente novo, é inovador em termos daquilo que existia até agora. Aliás, a ciência em Portugal teve um percurso também que evoluiu em sentido positivo. Nós passámos de ter, e estou a falar agora dos doutorados, tivemos bolsas pós-doc, portanto bolseiros, sem contrato, isso depois passou, os bolseiros passaram a ter contratos, portanto uma situação mais estável em termos de segurança social, etc. E agora haveria que dar um outro passo, que era tornar essa estabilidade mais social, se quiserem, numa estabilidade em termos profissionais. E isso foi feito com o FCT Tenure, que é um concurso, como eu já disse, que já está divulgado, mas portanto, está aberto entre 18 de dezembro e 1 de março, e esse concurso destina-se a investigadores que tenham uma situação precária e tem duas vias. Portanto, as universidades, no fundo, este mecanismo vem substituir o SEC institucional. Portanto, são as instituições que se candidatam a estas posições, fazem a sua estratégia, olham para dentro da sua casa e veem exatamente quais são as áreas, em função também dos investigadores que têm, quais são as áreas e em função dessas áreas, o número, seja em docentes, seja em investigadores, que querem contratualizar, mas vai permitir exatamente essas duas linhas. Na área da docência, eu posso contratar um investigador na área da docência ou posso contratar um investigador para a área da carreira científica. Portanto, para o caso dos docentes, durante 3 anos, o cofinanciamento é durante 3 anos, na área da carreira científica, o cofinanciamento é de 6 anos. Ora, colocava-se a questão, no caso das instituições, a forma de garantir financiamento após os 6 anos dos investigadores, porque neste momento, em termos de dotação orçamental, portanto, as instituições não recebem financiamento para a área da ciência. Portanto, aquilo que recebem é de forma indireta, através dos centros de investigação e através do financiamento da FCT. Portanto, aquilo que nós fizemos e que estávamos a fazer, mas que infelizmente não conseguimos terminar. Como sabem, existe um contrato de legislatura com as instituições do ensino superior, portanto um contrato plurianual com a duração de 4 anos. O segundo contrato terminou agora em novembro e nós estávamos exatamente a negociar com as instituições o terceiro contrato para os próximos 4 anos. Face ao que aconteceu, isso impossibilita que este contrato seja feito por este governo, uma vez que envolve não só todo o novo modelo de financiamento que começou a ser implementado, mas também envolvia uma área, exatamente uma área de ciência, a que nós chamamos Aliança Ciência, em que é possível, portanto, as instituições recebem uma dotação em conjunto com a fórmula de financiamento específica para a ciência, portanto isso não se conseguiu colocar em termos de contrato de legislatura, porque ele não se vai fazer, portanto aquilo que fizemos foi uma extensão de 1 ano do atual contrato de legislatura, mas conseguimos pela primeira vez inscrever em sede de orçamento o montante de 20 milhões de euros já para 2024, exatamente para ser distribuído diretamente pelo Ministério a quando das dotações orçamentais para todas as instituições do ensino superior. Portanto, esses 20 milhões, muito embora para o ano não sejam todos usados em novas contratações, porque não se vão contratar as 1000 posições que vão ser abertas de investigadores em simultâneo, mas de qualquer das maneiras, portanto, as instituições ficam com a garantia de ter uma linha específica de financiamento para a área da ciência e eu não acredito que, estando esta ponta aberta, estando este circuito estabelecido, que que o próximo governo, quem quer que seja, vá reverter esta situação, que era uma situação que já era pedida há muitos anos. Portanto, eu penso que isso foi muito bom, porque lá está, tudo aquilo que nós quisemos fazer foi não ter medidas pontuais para resolver problemas de forma individual, mas acima de tudo o que quisemos fazer foi ter financiamento para situações específicas, ter também regulamentos para situações específicas, mas tudo de uma forma integrada. Portanto, tentar olhar para o ecossistema da ciência de uma forma integrada, na sua globalidade, exatamente porque as coisas estão todas relacionadas. Daí também que tenhamos alterado o regulamento de avaliação das unidades de investigação, porque como estava feito, não estava exatamente de acordo com este novo modelo do FCT tenure, etc. Portanto, houve aqui uma série de reformulações que foram feitas, que podem ter levado mais algum tempo, mas exatamente a ideia era olhar para o sistema de uma forma integrada e não ter medidas pontuais para resolver este ou aquele problema. Portanto, a parte das pessoas no FCT tenure. E já agora gostaria também de vos dizer, portanto, que eu ainda na semana passada, sexta-feira, tivemos no Conselho da Competitividade em Bruxelas, na área da investigação e do espaço, e isto é também uma das recomendações que a própria Comissão Europeia está a fazer exatamente na estabilidade das carreiras científicas. Portanto, eu penso que Portugal está aí no bom caminho, porque com este programa nós garantimos estabilidade aos investigadores que escolheram trabalhar nesta área. Gostaria só ainda, uma outra medida que tomamos, e já aqui foi falado, aliás, falou-se muito do ERC, para mim o European Research Council e os projetos do ERC é talvez, da minha opinião, o melhor programa de investigação de excelência do mundo, portanto financia investigação de excelência, financia a melhor investigação que nós queremos fazer no mundo, mas neste caso para ser feita na Europa. Aliás, a forma como o ERC nasceu, aquilo que a Europa começou a ver era que estava a perder talento, não conseguia atrair talento para dentro da Europa e lançou exatamente este programa ERC para reter talento e para atrair talento para a Europa, porque, como sabem, qualquer bolsa do ERC pode ser dada a um americano que esteja nos Estados Unidos, a um chinês que esteja na China. O único requisito é que eles têm que desenvolver mais de 50% da sua investigação dentro da Europa, portanto, num país da Europa. Ora, nós, exatamente como são projetos muito emblemáticos e Portugal tem uma capacidade muito grande ainda para ter mais projetos desta área, aquilo que nós lançámos já o ano passado foi o ERC Portugal. Aliás, há bocadinho estávamos a falar na UK, o UK, portanto, fica sempre nos tops, portanto, é o país que mais bolsas ERC consegue atrair. Realmente foi um problema agora com o Brexit. Muito embora no caso das ERCs o Governo tenha suprido a falta do dinheiro de Bruxelas. De qualquer das maneiras, eu sempre que alguém ganha uma bolsa ERC, portanto tenho cuidado de telefonar ao cientista, seja estando em Portugal ou um português estando lá fora, e ainda o ano passado falei com um português que é professor numa universidade do Reino Unido e dei-lhe os parabéns. Aliás, ele até me disse, olha, está-me a dar os parabéns, mas eu recebi agora uma notícia que afinal a ERC não me vai dar a bolsa, porque nós não estamos. Nós, por causa do Brexit, saímos, mas de qualquer das maneiras eu tenho a certeza, tenho a garantia que o governo britânico me vai financiar exatamente no mesmo montante. Mas exatamente porque nós também queremos atrair e reter talento, lançámos o ERC Portugal para motivar mais os investigadores, porque ninguém faz investigação por decreto, portanto não podemos estar a legislar, tantos investigadores vão ter que apresentar propostas ERC, portanto ninguém vai fazer isso. Portanto, aquilo que nós fizemos foi ao contrário, foi motivar, nós temos que motivar os cientistas a apresentarem propostas ao ERC. E aquilo que fizemos foi, como o ERC é um programa extremamente competitivo, portanto tem duas fases, tem uma primeira fase de análise documental, depois tem uma segunda fase, há uma shortlist que vai à entrevista, e aquilo que nós fizemos com o ERC Portugal foi garantir um projeto FCT a quem chegasse à fase da entrevista, não tivesse, por razões de linha de corte, de budget, não tivesse portanto, o projeto financiado e caso ficasse com A, com a classificação de A, tinha automaticamente um projeto em Portugal. Isso já foi feito o ano passado, nós demos 5 projetos FCT a 5 cientistas, investigadores que tinham chegado à entrevista e tinham ficado com A, e um deles até tivemos que depois, acabámos por não dar, porque entretanto ele ficou na lista de reserva do ERC e acabou por ter a bolsa do ERC e portanto não valia a pena estar-lhe a perguntar se ele queria ficar com a bolsa ERC ou queria ficar com o projeto FCT. Mas exatamente devido à importância que nós damos a este programa, e aliás, ainda voltando a UK, eu tive durante alguns anos, trabalhei com o Paul Nurse, que é o diretor do Francis Crick Institute, e uma vez visitei o Instituto e perguntei-lhe quantas bolsas ERC é que aqui tem. Portanto, não era ter desde sempre, desde as primeiras chamadas, era running, portanto, era projetos ERC em funcionamento. Ele tinha, há 4 anos, tinha 100. Portanto, há 4 anos, o Francis Crick Institute tinha 100 bolsas ERC em funcionamento. Portanto, não era o número total de bolsas que eles já tinham ganho. Isso também para chamar a atenção que esta colaboração entre investigadores de Portugal com investigadores do Reino Unido é muito importante, porque o Reino Unido, os investigadores sabem muito bem como se candidatar a este tipo de bolsas, portanto, nós podemos também ter aí aprender muito com os investigadores do Reino Unido, exatamente porque, no fundo, trabalhamos com investigadores que estão nestas áreas e que tiveram sucesso neste projeto. Mas exatamente porque achamos que esta área é importante, para além de termos iniciado também um pré-assessment, portanto a FCT neste momento tem um conjunto quer de investigadores que tiveram bolsas ERC, quer de investigadores que tiveram nos painéis de avaliação, portanto, e que estão a ajudar investigadores quer na formulação de propostas e vão também passar a ajudar na parte da entrevista, porque a entrevista é fundamental. Nós podemos ter um projeto muito bom, cientificamente, termos chegado à entrevista e na entrevista não conseguirmos, naqueles 3 ou 5 minutos, passar a mensagem para os avaliadores. Portanto, estamos a trabalhar nessa área, a capacitar mais os investigadores que estão em Portugal para se candidatarem e terem sucesso nestes projetos. E, para além disso, agora no âmbito da reprogramação do PRR, também conseguimos alocar para a FCT uma verba na sua globalidade de cerca de 93 milhões de euros. Portanto, no primeiro PRR, a FCT, a ciência diretamente não teve acesso a financiamento PRR, tem de forma indireta, através das agendas mobilizadoras, com quase 3 mil milhões de euros, cerca de 38% desse valor vai para as unidades de investigação. De qualquer das maneiras, neste momento há um pacote que é gerido pela FCT e nesse pacote nós reforçamos a parte do ERC Portugal. E aquilo que vamos lançar brevemente um concurso é alguém que tenha tido uma ERC, seja em Portugal, seja lá fora, vai se candidatar através das instituições, portanto uma instituição que queira ficar com aquele investigador para uma posição também estável, portanto lá está mais uma forma também de garantirmos, de evitarmos a precariedade destes investigadores. Portanto, candidata-se a uma posição, seja numa universidade, seja num instituto politécnico, seja num laboratório, seja aquilo que for, candidata-se e se ficar, portanto a FCT ainda financia, portanto dá uma ajuda de 500 mil euros, o equivalente a 2 projetos FCT. Portanto, penso que é uma forma também de nós retermos talento que está em Portugal e também até atrairmos talento de fora de Portugal para cá. Pronto, isto gostaria de reforçar esta área, porque, portanto, é uma área extremamente importante. Também se falou aqui da parte do espaço, aliás, foi aqui assinado um protocolo entre 2 empresas, exatamente na área do espaço. Eu gostaria também de reforçar que a área do espaço é uma das prioridades deste governo, nomeadamente do Ministério que tutelo. Ainda também na passada sexta-feira no Conselho da Competitividade e na parte do espaço, portanto, foram mencionadas as atividades que Portugal está a fazer nessa área. Gostaria de vos dizer que ainda no último Conselho de Ministros, na passada quinta-feira, foi votada, portanto, foi aprovada a lei, uma reformulação da lei do espaço, portanto nós estávamos com alguns problemas exatamente no que diz respeito ao licenciamento dos lançadores que nós queremos que venham para o Porto Espacial de Santa Maria. Portanto, mais uma vez nos Açores nós temos uma área, temos coisas que os outros países não têm, temos ilhas no meio do Oceano Atlântico em posições estratégicas, e temos a ilha de Santa Maria, no arquipélago dos Açores, com o Porto Espacial de Santa Maria, e vamos potenciar através agora desta reformulação da lei espacial, que seja possível o licenciamento de pequenos lançadores neste Porto Espacial em Santa Maria. Portanto, a Europa está com vários problemas, como sabem, na área do lançamento de satélites. Temos quer a Ariane 6, quer o Vega 6 na Guiana Francesa com alguns problemas em termos de atraso, e a Europa, portanto, nós pagamos e pagamos bem à ESA, portanto, temos uma agência europeia espacial que toma conta destes assuntos. Temos já 4 satélites da constelação Galileu que ainda não foram lançados, portanto estamos a perder competitividade face às outras potências, e a Europa tem que olhar para outros portos espaciais. Temos que ter mais locais, para além daquele que existe na Guiana Francesa, para lançarmos, em especial, não grandes satélites, mas satélites de pequeno porte. E isso é também uma oportunidade, não só para Portugal, mas acima de tudo para a Europa, porque também não há assim tantos portos espaciais como isso. Para além do espaço, gostaria também de vos informar que uma das apostas deste Governo e da Europa e do mundo é na área dos semicondutores. Como sabem, a Europa tem foi agora aprovado na passada quinta-feira da semana passada, portanto, o novo programa dos semicondutores em termos europeus, o CHIPS Act. Portanto, Portugal faz parte desse programa e também na passada quinta-feira, na reunião do Conselho de Ministros, portanto, aprovámos a Estratégia Nacional para a área dos semicondutores. Portanto, temos já um budget de cerca de 121 milhões nacionais de cofinanciamento, exatamente para todas as atividades, quer dentro da área da ciência, quer também na parte das empresas que trabalham na área dos semicondutores. Portanto, esse assunto também ficou fechado. Gostaria ainda de vos, e já para terminar, uma das apostas que nós fizemos, e isso também tem a ver com a colaboração que nós temos com o Reino Unido, e também é uma forma que nós queremos também ainda incentivar mais, é a relação entre a academia e as indústrias, portanto, aquilo que se fala, transformar conhecimento em inovação, no fundo, diminuir aquele vale da morte, portanto, todas essas coisas. É evidente que isso não se faz também por decreto, não se faz só com uma medida, faz de uma forma integrada. E aquilo que nós também apostámos, e este Governo apostou, foi nas bolsas de doutoramento não académicas. Portanto, nós lançámos, era um concurso que já estava até em aberto, há vários anos, tinha pouca expressão, portanto não tinha muitas candidaturas, e nós este ano aquilo que a FCT fez foi alocar 400 das posições de bolsas de doutoramento, para além de todas aquelas que até têm protocoladas com várias entidades, alocá-las exatamente a indústrias, a organismos, a museus, a outras instituições, porque nós precisamos, lá está, como precisamos de ter os alunos, antes de chegarem à universidade, em contacto com a ciência, nós também precisamos de ter aqui os alunos que estão a fazer o doutoramento e que querem ir para trabalhar para empresas, que comecem também a fazer as suas teses de doutoramento de uma forma, nesta área, mais aplicada e logo em conjunto com o meio não académico. Portanto, isto é uma coisa que iniciou, mas que nós ainda queremos promover, porque eu tenho falado com muitas empresas e ainda há muitas empresas que desconhecem esta possibilidade. Portanto, para além disso, gostaria só mesmo para terminar, portanto, de fazer um bocadinho de publicidade, que estas coisas tenho que vender, algumas das coisas vender no bom sentido, que temos em Portugal, para além desta joia, que é o Ciência Viva, que está espalhada por todo o país, nós temos também uma outra joia na área das nanotecnologias, que é o Centro Internacional de Nanotecnologias, Centro Ibérico de Nanotecnologias, localizado em Braga. Portanto, temos um centro com uma infraestrutura do melhor que há no mundo, pouco conhecida, inclusivamente sendo um centro que tem o estatuto internacional, tem o estatuto exatamente como o CERN, portanto é internacional, portanto os funcionários no INL pagam menos impostos, os projetos e tudo aquilo que é adquirido pelo INL não paga IVA, porque lá está, é internacional. Portanto, tem muitas vantagens e é pouco conhecida, até a começar pelos espanhóis. Portanto, os próprios espanhóis conhecem pouco este Centro Ibérico de Nanotecnologias e nós temos que o capacitar. Aliás, a primeira bolsa ERC que o INL tem veio com a nova diretora de Espanha. A nova diretora, a Clívia Sotomayor, desde 15 de setembro, temos uma nova direção no INL, portanto é uma espanhola que estava em Barcelona, num centro de nanotecnologias, Clívia Sotomayor, que tinha uma bolsa ERC, e daí a vantagem destas bolsas ERC, portanto elas são negociáveis, são transportáveis, portanto ela trouxe a bolsa de Barcelona para Portugal. Neste momento o INL tem uma bolsa ERC, porque é um instituto e é um tipo de infraestrutura que tem todas as condições para se fazer não só a melhor ciência que nós podemos fazer, como condições únicas. Aliás, o próprio INL tem uma creche, eu também soube isso há pouco tempo, tem uma creche para os funcionários, para 50 crianças, lá dentro, portanto, nas instalações, gratuita, portanto, faz parte do pacote de qualquer funcionário que esteja no INL, e caso esteja cheia, o INL garante o pagamento da creche noutra localidade, porque exatamente se nós queremos atrair pessoas de fora de Portugal, por vezes vêm as famílias e temos que garantir condições para toda a família, para que toda a família se possa instalar aqui em Portugal. Portanto, queria-vos dar conta e que falem e que divulguem muito tudo aquilo que se faz na área do INL, portanto, e isto vem exatamente no seguimento, porque o INL tem todas as capacidades neste momento para ser um centro de competências europeu na área dos semicondutores. E já agora, portanto, gostaria também de vos dizer que logo na altura em que o INL foi negociado, ficou também pensado fazer um centro ibérico em Espanha. Portanto, este foi o primeiro, foi instalado em Braga, Portanto, isto demorou algum tempo com a parte de Espanha, mas neste momento, aliás, com fundos do PRR de Espanha, está a ser construído também um centro ibérico na área da energia em Cáceres. Portanto, já estão a contratar pessoas, portanto, divulguem. Portanto, a energia é também uma das áreas com mais importância hoje em dia, não só energias renováveis, mas também toda a parte do armazenamento de energia, nomeadamente baterias, e temos que divulgar estas coisas, porque temos aqui 2 centros ibéricos com especificidades únicas, com infraestruturas de ponta, e quem queira trabalhar nestas áreas, portanto, não tem razão para falhar, porque tem tudo aquilo que necessita para ter sucesso, pelo menos naquelas áreas de investigação. Portanto, eram também estas novidades que eu vos queria transmitir, porque geralmente estas notícias que são difíceis de chegar à comunidade científica, e acima de tudo estarmos muito orgulhosos por aquilo que temos, por aquilo que conseguimos ao longo destes anos. Portugal não é nada daquilo que era há muitos anos, portanto acho que se transformou de uma forma muito, muito positiva, e isso só nos deve deixar com muito orgulho. Portanto, e se calhar como já nos vamos ver brevemente, portanto desejo-vos a todos, eu vou estar cá na sessão do Natal, nas lectures, dia 19, portanto desejo-vos a todos umas boas festas e acima de tudo com muita saúde. Bom dia, boa tarde.
So it's the end now, and a new start. Let's chat about future collaborations outside. We have some food. Please join us in that, and thank you very much, everyone, and all the speakers and moderators.